This is James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Welcome, dear listener, to this most adequate podcast. As usual, I'm Kyler.
I'm Chris.
I'm Ross.
And this is our, believe it or not, 18th episode.
Yeah.
Regular episode.
Yes.
That's crazy. I don't know. I thought you guys would have been like, well, that was a fun experiment.
Did you not have faith in us, Kyler?
Also myself, just because I'm lazy. But also, we've had a pretty good response online. I'm happy so far.
Well, the ideas keep coming, too. We haven't run out yet.
Yeah,
we can stop.
Also
once I run out of things to talk about, we can stop. So give us a 30 years or so.
Yep. Oh man, we hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. This should air, I think, the week after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
If my brain is functioning
good Thanksgiving,
right.
good November.
My brain is full of turkey
if you're
and gravy
in the US,
right now. So.
If you're in the US.
Yeah.
This will air only a couple days after we record it, so.
Yep, that's
But
right.
you know what? If you're not in the US, we're happy to have you celebrate.
It's true. Sweden listener, you keep downloading and you're winning on the UK, so, let us know who you are. I want to know who you are. Okay, I'm deeply interested in how somebody from Sweden found us and continues to listen to us. Anyway, I want to know who you are. I want to be your friend. Okay, Ross, take the news away before I continue with all things.
This week, was it this week that it was actually posted?
Or maybe last week.
It was recently.
Just within a few
This
days.
week is unimportant to anyone most people listening to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, recently, Disney posted a little teaser trailer type video for its Star Wars park attached to, is it Disneyland or Disney World? California or Florida?
California. I think it's Disneyland.
Oh, good. That's a close one.
Yeah.
So they...
And it looks beautiful.
It does. It looks really good.
Boy.
And there's full Falcon you can walk up in and all that
and
stuff.
they've got full-size buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah. Although I wonder how that's going to work with the Falcon because the insides and the outsides don't match.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although actually I was noticing in Solo today, they did do a little bit of stuff because they had one continuous shot where you go up the ramp and around one of the halls. And so I don't know, they messed with the proportions on the Solo Falcon or something. Anyway, there's some jiggery-pokery going on. Anyway, Disney released a video showing the Star Wars park, and they had some clips of a post-Force Awakens battle. Last Jedi, which is also post-Force Awakens.
Fair.
I always get those titles mixed up. I don't know why. I just... Yeah. Anyway.
The Last Force Jedi Awakens.
Yep.
Post that.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for the next title. It shows...
Force Jedi goes to sleep.
Yoda's already done that. We have that meme already. They need to come up with something else. But it shows an in-canon battle between the Resistance and the First Order. So, the park is set up to be something of an adventure and its own little story. And so they have actually set it in canon. And the video shows a quick little battle that has a bunch of new ships that are interesting. So, I will leave Kyler to the technical analysis.
Yeah. So, as Ross said, it is a part of the official Lucasfilm story group for Star Wars. The events of the ride, that the First Order is ambushed by a Resistance fleet post-return Last Jedi. And what we see, at least from their clip, you analyze it frame by frame, we see two big Mon Cal cruisers. Ross thinks they're MC-80s.
The Home One. The other one...
No, they're not.
That's an MC-80.
No, it's not.
It absolutely
An MC-80, you'll notice this picture here that we've got the picture pulled up here on Ross's computer so we can argue about it. But that Mon Cal cruiser has two hangars near the nose, which you can see on either side. MC-80 does not have those there.
It's a refit.
It could be a refit.
Come on.
But we don't know for sure.
Or it could be an MC-81.
It could be an MC-85, could be an MC-90. I've seen a convincing argument for the MC-90, which is a previously Legends ship, which could be now canonized. Who knows? You see at least one, possibly two Free Virgilia bunker busters, like the Nimka, which is one of the 3 ships destroyed. It's the one that kind of has like a hammerhead shape to it.
One.
Yeah. Then there's 2 Nebula and Sea cruisers as well, which are also seen in Last Jedi. It's the other ship that they leave behind to get blown up. Then there's apparently the Resistance has lots more Star Fortresses, the bombers, so they're still there. And there's some X-Wings, the lead X-Wing there in the middle of this picture, Ross. It's the one that, if you watch the video, what's the name of the video, Ross? Read that out to me.
This is the New Resistance fleet after Last Jedi - reveal and breakdown.
Yep, that's the title of the video. So if you want to go watch it, he does a pretty good job examining things and does a really, really great job. He also points out, and I tend to agree with him, that it's probably Poe's X-Wing there in the center. It's black and orange. The angle on it, at the frame that Ross has it frozen right now doesn't really show it. There's too much glare. But if you actually watch it and kind of pay attention, you can see there's a little bit of gray and orange. So I think that's Poe.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's just kind of cool. So even though they lost the Raddus and the Nimka and whatever the Nebulan Sea was in Last Jedi, apparently they had quite a bit more ships tucked away elsewhere.
Or have acquired since then.
Or have acquired since then, because even though they have said this is post-Last Jedi, we don't know how much post-Last Jedi this is. And we have, I can't remember who said it, I want to say Kathleen Kennedy. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. But the rumor that is more likely fact than rumor is that Episode 9 is going to have a significant time jump between 8 and 9, so that we don't have a movie that is about a Millennium Falcon full of people winning a battle, or winning a war. So, who knows? Yeah, this could be years later. It could be that they did have more of a fleet that was just elsewhere, maybe that had already evacuated from Dakar. Who knows? But anyway, kind of cool.
With that last plot point of Last Jedi of no one responding, I would think they would have to be built up again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, everything in Last Jedi makes it seem like what you see is what you get. Yeah. So if there are this many people, it looks like they've had significant time to rebuild. Mm-hmm. So my guess, honestly, is probably 10 or 20 years of a time jump. My guess is that it's a big time jump. Huh. And that, because Yoda also says that, like, you're not the last Jedi, Luke. Don't freak out. Rey's got things. She's not as dumb as you are. She'll be fine. Right?
Paraphrasing.
Well, but he basically does say that. He's like, you kind of failed.
We are what they grow beyond. Like, she'll do all right.
Yeah. And so my guess is that this is just my dumb fan theory, which we're going to do an episode on dumb fan theories, which I'm excited for. But I think we'll see a significant enough time jump for Rey to have restarted a Jedi Academy.
You think so?
I could see it. I don't know for sure, but I could see it being that far. I think we'll see probably 10-ish years, maybe more, of a time jump. I think so. Because they need time. Because look how long it took them to build up just what they had. Mm-hmm. And, because Leia had been working on it for 6 years. Bloodlines is the book that that officially starts the rebellion, or the resistance.
Right.
Where Leia says, okay, time for me to go back underground and just do things the way we had always done it. And that was set 6 years before Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. So in 6 years, we know they get one big Mon Cal capital ship and 2 little ships. And a few bombers and a few starfighters. So this fleet looks to be, just based on capital ships, twice the size, at least.
Well, I mean, the Raddus was
big.
Much, much larger than
It is, but but nonetheless, you have one capital ship in the Raddus versus this fleet, which has at least 2 big capital ships and 3, perhaps 4 support vessels.
There's also a significant difference in the situation there, though, where before we've got a somewhat complacent and corrupt government that is fighting,
and now there's open war in between.
Whereas this is, hey, everybody can see that they're a problem now.
Yeah. Everyone except the people in Hosnian Prime. Oh!
It's as bad as making a joke about Alderaan.
Yep.
It's forever too soon.
You mean Alderaan? That was bad. Sorry. Sorry, everybody. That was bad. Anyway, we can be done with that, I guess. Go watch the video. It's pretty cool.
Done with the news, he means. We'll never be done making Alderaan jokes.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, for sure. The dumb jokes, that's a staple. That's never going away. But and, much to probably Ross's disappointment, I've received very positive feedback about my dumb jokes. So they're not stopping. It's we're gonna keep on going. So this episode, as you know by the title, we're going to talk about Solo, a Star Wars story, and just kind of talk about our feelings about it, if it was good, bad, what we liked, what we didn't like. And we literally just finished watching it before recording this.
Yep. Yes.
Because it's
Ross's third view you said, or fourth?
My third.
My third. No, my fourth.
Kind of fourth.
Yeah, that
one. Yeah. And my second. That was the first time I've seen it out of theaters. So.
Yeah, so it's the newest movie, and so we had not as much like ingrained memory to rely on like we do with like the original trilogy, for example. So we were all like, let's just get together at Ross's house, let's watch it, then talk about it. So we did. And I don't think it necessarily changed any of our stances on how we felt about it. It just sort of reinforced everything we had thought before.
Yep.
So anyway, let's talk about it. I don't even know what we want to talk about first, but
none of us are quite as diehard on our opinions with this one as we were with the last two episodes we did this.
Yeah, all three of us, and I think we talked about this in an earlier episode. I forget which one.
When we talked about the new...
When we talked about... Oh, yeah, that's what it was. It was our third episode where we talked about Disney's Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we all kind of were like, Solo is right in the middle. It's neither here nor there. It's not really great, but it's not one that we particularly have strong feelings against. It's just...
There are aspects of it that I have strong feelings against.
I do too, and I think we can talk about those. Do any of you have anything that's like burning that you want to talk about first, or... should we just go with something that came to my mind?
Let's just go with what you've got.
Okay. So this was one of my... And I want to start this by saying, like, overall, I feel good about Solo. I don't dislike watching it. Not like Last Jedi, which, despite Chris's extremely well-reasoned arguments, I still just grate my teeth watching. Solo is not that way for me. I don't mind Solo. That being said, it has some kind of dumb things in it. I want to talk about the escape from Kessel.
Okay.
Sure. So we were talking during the movie, kind of riffing it and giving our own commentary on it. But one of, a couple things. A minor thing is they're flying out the little cloud tunnel, right? Everything is, thus far, going mostly according to plan. Okay?
Yeah, more or less.
More or less.
We got the stuff and we got out.
We got the stuff, we got out. We lost a couple people along the way. Whatever. Here we go.
Well, I mean, L3 wasn't her.
Yeah, L3. Yeah, we're going to talk about her. So
I don't usually make jokes about droids not being people. It's only funny because it's L3.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Oh, so, and then it's a beautiful shot of like the lightning that illuminates. Holy crap, there's a Star Destroyer.
Yeah, I do love that shot.
It is a beautiful shot. Like, slap that on a poster, stick it on your wall, it's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And of course, we all know that it's going to be gorgeous because it has millions of Disney dollars.
It's almost as gorgeous as Kylo Ren without the shirt on.
Oh, gross. Oh, stop it. Oh, Chris. Oh. Chris is itching to be punched in the face today, apparently.
I was just remembering your comment about every shot of The Last Jedi you could just slap on a poster, and so we just well, I mean, that's right.
Well, you guys haven't been in my bedroom lately. I actually have shirtless Kylo on my wall. No.
Yeah,
good old Ben Swallow.
Ben Swallow, exactly. Oh my gosh! But that Star Destroyer shot is beautiful.
No, yeah.
It's gorgeous. Looks so cool. But I said this, and I thought this, I think the second time, because the first time I was just kind of letting the movie happen to me.
Yeah.
But every time since the first time I saw it in theaters, I've thought, why doesn't the Falcon just blow past the Star Destroyer? It's not like the Star Destroyer can turn on a dime. Anybody who has played Armada knows this well. Star Destroyers are not necessarily the most nimble of creatures. So why don't they blow past? Just shoot underneath it or over top it.
We've specifically seen the Falcon do similar things with multiple Star Destroyers in the originals.
And then my thought today, as we were watching it, as I'm trying to, play devil's advocate, I'm going, okay, well, maybe they don't want to run the risk of getting snagged by a tractor beam or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would make sense why you run away. But then I'm going, but hold on. Why don't you just pop into the cloud curtain for just a minute, rush your 1,600 meter length of a Star Destroyer, pop back out of the clouds into the cloud tunnel, and just keep on your merry way. And I brought this up, and Ross said, well, you've got the carbon bergs, the icebergs made of carbon, that can crash into stuff. And I said, yes, Ross, but they go in there anyway. Mm-hmm. Through
Trying
a much
to stay
more
close
dangerous,
to the path seems like a safer course than just, let's just veer off course.
Yeah, so that, I was kind of going, well, that makes no bloody sense at all.
Of course, maybe they have reinforcements behind them. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
you're also dealing, even though he's very cocky, it's a much less experienced Han Solo.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's probably never actually flown against a Star Destroyer before.
Could be.
He was also just barely proven wrong before that, where he's like, they'll never send out fighters. And then they send out fighters. So maybe he's feeling slightly less cocky at that moment. It could be. I would have appreciated just a comment of just like, look, guys, we're running late. At this point, it doesn't even matter. And just be like, no. I can get us there. We just have to go this way. And have that be the reason they go out, which is kind of, sort of, tiny bit implied, but not really. It's not clear in any way.
Yeah. So, while beautiful, doesn't make a lot of sense. And this brings...
I also nitpicked, as long as, this is an even smaller nitpick. I just loved that there's just like, okay, as long as there's no more problems, or whatever the line was, and Kira's like, well, like that. And then we have this slow shot of everyone turning to look, and then the lightning illuminates that, and I was like, in that sort of situation, I feel like blatant specificity would be a lot more useful than the dramatic reveal. Like, guys, there's a Star Destroyer, let's get moving, instead of, what about that? Wait. Oh, yeah, that is a problem, Kira.
Here's a slight aside to that. So I was in a writing class for film in college for my degree. One thing that professor always harped on was subtext in writing. You always have to have subtext. That's why usually when people are asked a direct question, they give an indirect answer. Wouldn't that fit under doing that properly?
Someone could do that in real life. Like,
yeah.
It's not horrible, but it is...
Well, because that was the hardest part that I had with that class, was like, that's what bothers me in movies, is that no one just says what they mean to say.
Yeah, and that is a common cliche of movie writing in particular, it's the desire to be clever. It's like, we're trying to make this witty, we're trying to make this bantery, so instead of just saying a response, we gotta be clever about it in some way. We gotta, and there's a lot to be said for subverting expectations, and like, well, the obvious thing to say would be this, but if I can say the same thing in a clever manner that's not the same thing, that's awesome. And that is. But there's a difference between saying the same thing in a clever manner and just saying it, or just being smarmy for smarminess sake. Mm-hmm. It's like Joss Whedon gets a lot of flack from certain quarters for his back and forth. Like, his dialogue is great in a lot of ways, but he basically, he rarely gets too far afield of just the snappy back and forth banter that made Buffy so popular back in the day, and has always been a trademark of his, and a lot of people complain about that. Right. In the Marvel movies in particular, he got a lot of flack for it. It's just like, it's so much banter. and yeah, there is a limit to banter.
So,
often. Anyway.
The thing that popped into my head first, which then I was like, oh, well, let's just talk about the Star Destroyer for a minute before we get into this, is the Suma Verminoth.
That's the name of the Star Destroyer?
Yeah, both Chris and Ross's eyebrows raised. Yes, that is the name of the lots of eyed tentacled creature in the Maw. Okay.
Near the Maw.
Near the Maw. And then in the Maw. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so it makes no sense. From start to finish, it makes no sense whatsoever, aside from looking really cool. But I want to talk, I'm going, guys, if you're going to put this out there, I don't know, it makes me think of episode 1, the traveling through the planet core, and the bongo is what it is.
Yeah. The bongo, I remember.
And there's always a bigger fish, and these creatures are chasing it. But I want to talk about why that doesn't feel weird, and this does.
That does feel weird.
It does. Well, okay. For me, it doesn't. I mean, aside from it being completely unnecessary.
Yes,
but as far as just from a biology standpoint. So in episode 1, you do, I mean, it literally, that's the joke, right? There's always a bigger fish. We're literally talking about the food chain here. And you see that bigger things prey on smaller things, but the first thing to attack the bongo is actually not much bigger than the bongo itself. It's the little crabby crustacean thingy, which then gets eaten by the eel or something like that.
Yeah, depending on what kind of the movie you're watching,
Yeah, and then like the eel gets eaten by the big dinosaur thing. Okay?
Yeah.
In each instant, so the crabby thing, which is only a little bit bigger than the bongo, that makes sense for it to attack the bongo. It's clearly a top-tier predator. You know, it's got the big teeth.
It's clearly not.
But it's
a predator.
There are things higher
predator,
on the chain with it, but it's pretty high up there.
Okay, higher.
You know what I mean? That's what I mean. That's why I said not like apex,
it's not apex,
but it's up there, right?
Gotcha.
There aren't many things that are going to feed on the crabby thing.
Yeah.
And so it feels pretty safe going after the bongo. Then you have kind of the eel thing, which is a little bit bigger than the crabby thing, but it kind of ignores the bongo.
Yeah.
It's kind of become too small to be
as
worried.
they successively get larger, they ignore the bongo.
Right, and then you get to the big dinosaur thing that doesn't even care about the crabby thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it just, the bongo doesn't even matter to it. And this is actually kind of true to nature. You know, that like... Okay, so you've got basically two ways to approach it. I think like a whale shark, right? Yes, it eats plankton, but it eats them by just the bucket load.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like millions and millions and millions of plankton every day.
Yeah.
But it's also not exactly like a super aggressive predator either. Yeah. It swims around the ocean with its mouth open, hoping it gets some food. And that's kind of all it can do, right? Whereas something like the great white shark is a much more active predator, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the great white shark isn't going to bother with your goldfish because the energy expended to eat a goldfish isn't going to be worth the cost, you know? Which is why it goes for seals, right? So, and you see that in episode 1, that the bigger ones are kind of like, I need to make the expenditure of energy in obtaining this food, like, worth the food that I'm obtaining. You know, like, or the food that I'm obtaining needs to be worth the energy expenditure to get that food. Which is why the big dinosaur thing is like, Bongo, go free. Who cares? You're not worth my trouble. Mm-hmm. I've got the eel here. This, the Suma Verminoth, which is an awesome name, and that's from StarWars.com, by the way, so that's about as official as it gets, goes after the Millennium Falcon for really no apparent reason. The Millennium Falcon is quite small compared to this creature. Even if you take away the tentacles and are just looking at like the main body, the Millennium Falcon, you could fit several Millennium Falcons in the mouth of this thing. So it's not going to get very much energy from the Falcon. And then the Falcon, to escape, shoots off the escape pod towards the maw in the hopes to distract this thing, which it for some reason does. This clearly like apex predator in the region, given the choice between a larger and a smaller meal, decides to go for the smaller meal. It makes no dang sense, let alone the fact that it is chasing the Falcon to begin with. The Falcon isn't threatening it. It's clearly not worth the energy as a food source. And then this thing, which lives in the maw, in the dangerous part of this cloudy, you know, I forget what they called it. They actually had a name for it, which I caught this time, region, but then I forgot about it. Anyway, so it's a native to this region. It's not unfamiliar with the terrain, and yet it goes in close enough to be caught by the event horizon of the maw. Really, guys? Really? This is so dumb. And like looking at the picture, like thinking about how big the Falcon is compared to this thing's mouth. Then looking at this thing's mouth compared to the main body of the thing. This thing's body is bigger than a Star Destroyer. What in the world is it doing chasing down the Falcon for a bite to eat? This is literally a great white chasing a goldfish. Why would it bother wasting its time? It makes no sense at all.
Maybe falcons are just very tasty.
Maybe, but how often does it have a falcon to chew on that it would know?
Because think about also the Space Slug in Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
It also comes out and lunges after the falcon.
Yes, it does, but it's also not nearly as big as this. And it also doesn't...
Given how long they take to fly out of that thing, and they're not even all the way down its gullet, and that's just its gullet, like, that's just the empty space within it that we see. That's not even
and also the comparison of the Falcon to one of the Space Slug's teeth, in comparison to the Falcon to one of the whatever this one is teeth.
All right, I'll give you the vermin. I'll give you like lengthwise, but to me there doesn't seem to be much mass.
I think circumference it's also larger, and mass definitely. With how long is
with all these tentacles though?
Sure,
I don't think so.
Anyway,
the Exogorth, fun fact, also essentially has roots at its tail that it digs into the asteroid and absorbs minerals.
Oh, really?
That's part of its nutrients. Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway,
well, and minerals make sense as to why it would want a metal thing.
Yeah.
So
this doesn't appear to have that.
Living in a carbon asteroid field, maybe though.
Maybe, but again, why not go munch on a iceberg, made of
like
carbon, rather than chase the carbon that's not going to really run away from you. You have to expend almost no energy to consume the energy from it. Then, if that's what it really. But also, I don't think so. Look at this thing's teeth, man. Like, this is a predator meant to take down other organisms.
Yeah, that's legit.
And the tentacles, too. I mean, they're meant to grab onto other organisms.
Maybe it secretes acid and kind of loosens up the carbon bergs.
It doesn't,
absorbs
though.
them.
You don't know! Except that we see what the tentacles do. They generate electricity like an electric eel.
Oh, that's true. They do they?
They're zappy, and they have little suckers on them.
So the suckers can secrete something? Come
I
on.
don't think so.
Come on.
No.
And
it makes no sense.
It cooks its own food, like an eel, like an
So-
actual eel.
Now, I'm not saying I agree that it's over the top. I don't feel that it is any more egregious than Star Wars has been in the past, A. And B,
Sure.
Yeah.
science fiction and science fantasy in general have been in the past.
Yeah.
Particularly Star Trek, which this is the most Star Trek-y Star Wars movie ever made.
Yes, I would. We should do.
I'm going to talk about that. That's
let's do
one
it.
of my things with this. But
No, and I just want to say, as dumb as this is, like, it doesn't turn me off
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
movie, but it is one of those things that I'm going,
it's what knocked
we
you
could
out of
have,
the movie.
we could have thought a little more about
So
this.
the two things I'm thinking of, I'm like, well, maybe there's some sort of competitive system where it's like either other members of its species or another competitive predator that signal using lights or whatever, and so when they get their lights on and flash it in the eye, it takes that as some sort of challenge, and that's why it's chasing this down.
be.
Still don't know why it goes after the escape pod or why it follows it into the maw.
Yeah.
But maybe there's that. Or also, I'm thinking of I spent all this time trying to look up the title of this, Never Cry Wolf. I don't know if you guys ever saw this. This is a movie that Disney put out in 1983 about a government researcher sent to research wolves in, I believe, Alaska.
This sounds awesome.
It's not what you're thinking.
Oh, darn.
But it is very interesting. And it's based on a true story where the wolves were getting hunted down because of the threat they posed to caribou. And I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this audience, but I think it was caribou or something up there that was living up there, and their numbers were dying out, and so people were blaming the wolves and hunting them down. And so this guy went in to research it, to find out what was going on, and he lived there and dealt with wolves left and right.
I think I've seen this movie.
Yeah,
Is this the one where he, like, pees in a circle around his
that's
tail?
the one.
Yeah,
the
I
Marxist-
remember seeing this.
Everybody
It's
sees this
awesome.
in school at some
Yeah.
point.
It's so cool.
And the whole point
I
of that,
watched
though,
it
is
at
that
home
people were
on
saying-
like PBS,
Yeah.
like a real person.
People were saying that there's no way for the wolves to survive up there unless they're taking out the caribou, and in reality, they were just eating mice
Yeah.
by the truckload.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm looking at here. Like, maybe this thing eats mice, quote unquote, by the truckload. Maybe
Could
it
be,
saw
I
that
guess.
light and it went, it's another one. Another one wandered through this field. That's why it lives here. And it went chasing it
Because
down.
it is suspiciously close to the little cloud tunnel thing.
Yeah. But,
And maybe it finds there are lots of ships that wander through, so that's why it stays close.
maybe there's a lot of idiots trying to make the Kessel Run.
But we do know from the movie that people do come in and don't come out. So I mean,
Yeah, that's fine.
there you go.
I doubt there's enough to prevent. Like, it's still it's implausible, of course,
Yeah.
but no more implausible than Star Wars on a whole, in my opinion. So
It's rule of cool. I mean,
And it
with
does
that-
look way
it is
cool.
pretty cool.
Even with that scene, I mean, the black hole itself.
And when it gets torn apart and stuff, like, it is a
Yeah.
way cool,
Yeah.
like, sequence there, but it just...
But
Made
for
no sense.
for those that may not realize, black holes are not whirlpools in space.
Yes,
They are
Sadly.
areas of gravity that are so intense that light cannot escape them. So we don't actually know what they look like. We know they're there. I think there even isn't actually proof yet.
Well, no,
But
there are
know,
like gravity waves and stuff. I saw that recently.
Well, and they have found
they're there.
areas that they find that light bends funny and leaves a spot that light isn't coming through. Like they'll track a star and all of a sudden it'll kind of squish and then disappear, and then they'll see it come up again, squish, and then return on its way. So they know that gravity is bending the light and then also sucking it all in as the star goes behind the black hole and then comes back out again. Anyway. But yeah, they don't look anything like you see in any sort of media.
Any movie, anywhere. Yeah.
Which is really a shame because how they look in media is dang cool. Let's be real.
This is probably my favorite black hole representation.
Visually, it's quite engaging. My biggest problem with this part of the, like, I don't
Except
necessarily...
it was really bright for a thing that's sucking in all light.
Right, exactly. I don't necessarily have a problem with a Star Trek-y Star Wars movie. It just caught me off guard where I was watching and I was going, wow, this is weirdly Star... And what I mean by that, the main thing I mean by that is the technobabble. Mm-hmm. You know, the Star Trek guy, I love the Futurama parody of it where it's like, how do we deal with this? It's like, well, in the show, somebody would come up with a really technically complicated plan and then someone else would explain it using a really simple analogy. Wait, if we overload this and interfere with its waves then we could maybe cause it to self-destruct, like putting too much air in a balloon. Yes, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly what's there's technobabble, but we just have to achieve this one visually simple thing in order to achieve the technobabble, which is not a thing Star Trek or Star Wars usually does. Star Trek does it left and right. Star Wars is not usually big on that, and when you had the whole sequence where it's like, okay, we got the giant space monster, which feels very Trekky to me in a lot of ways. And that's not a criticism, just it feels that way to me. And then we get past that and we get stuck right on the edge of a black hole that we can't escape. Which is like, we literally saw that in J.J. Abrams' Star
Yes,
Trek.
I was just thinking that.
That's one of the biggest sci-fi cliches. Like, that was a big disappointment for me where I was like, really? We're doing the stuck on the edge of a black hole, but we can't, we're not going any further in, but we can't get any further out, and so we have to do some technobabble to get out. How many times have I seen this? Like, off the top of my head, Star Trek and Treasure Planet. But I mean, like, it's everywhere.
Treasure Planet too. Jeez.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, we're stuck on the edge of a black hole. Okay. Whatever, okay. And it's like, how are we going to get out? Well, we're going to technobabble. We're going to drop the stuff we're going to take some of the technobabble and we're going to drop it in the technobabble, and that's going to technobabble our ship so that we can technobabble out of here. And it was just like...
I hope none of you are listening to this on 1.5 speed, because that would have been incredible.
But yeah, and it's like, okay, that's some pretty common sci-fi cliches. I'm not, like, horrified by it, but it was just sort of like, really, we're doing this? That's not usually Star Wars'
Chris, I want you to write a book called Escape from the Black Hole, where the whole thing is just...
We're stuck on the edge of the black hole and we can't get out.
And it's just chapter after chapter of technobabble. Until the very last page, when someone drops a really cliche...
I don't know if I could pull that off, man. I don't know. Anyway, and it was one of those things where watching it, I was like, well, that's really convenient that this stuff, completely unrefined... You can just drop it in the engine and it provides a boost. That's handy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, really? I don't know. Anyway. And there's a lot of that throughout.
Especially where it's unrefined like that.
Yeah.
That seems like... Because you can't do that with, like, gas. Like gasoline. You know what I mean? Like,
you can't drop crude oil into your gas tank.
You will wreck your engine in, like, 4 seconds. You know?
And there's... That sequence is the worst of it. There are a few other places in the movie where I was like, I'm pushing there, but not too bad. But yeah, so it was weird for me. I was just like, wow, that's unusually
works
Star Trek.
So exceptionally well, unrefined, why bother refining
because
it?
it'll explode if you don't refine it. I'll at least grant them that.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well,
that also leads me to the question of just like, so I assume they had a refinery there at Kessel that we just didn't see?
Like, I was thinking about that too, actually.
They must
normally do refining on their own before it leaves.
Yeah.
Because Kessel is primarily a spice mine.
Yeah.
Actually, I guess in canon it was only a spice mine until this movie, right?
Yeah, and now they've said there's a fissure underneath the spice.
We also have a convenient extra.
Right.
Which, sure, okay, what else?
Well, I mean, it's possible that multiple valuable items can be, from the same asteroid.
But that was my main problem with the sequence, is just this cliche.
Yeah.
And we're gonna, and then it's not gonna work. We had it all perfectly aligned so we could get out. Oh, nope, it didn't work. Our ship goes spinning, and then it kicks in, and somehow we're still aligned? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think they like, because it's Han basically like, I'm just going to go with my gut on this
Sure,
rather than
sure.
the computer.
But that's actually another sci-fi cliche that I see a lot is this, like, we have to get this perfectly aligned. Oh, whoops, we didn't, and now we're just going to hand wave over the fact that we're not perfectly aligning again and just
Do it anyway.
eyeball it.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they do it in there to show you that he really is this master pilot. He's got a great feeling for the Falcon and how it can maneuver, and he's in tune with the ship.
Well, see, but
and-
the thing is, he times it, and then it dies, and then it kicks in again.
Well,
Yeah.
he times it, tells the guy to inject the thing. The guy second guesses. Then he puts it in. Then it dies.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a whole chain of things.
And that
should've
happens
ruined
all
it.
the time in
Yeah.
movies where I'm just like, we have to get the timing perfect.
Except
now
when we don't.
Wait, why isn't it working? Why isn't this working? No, crap. That was our window. We were timing it perfectly. Oh, now it kicked in, and it turns out my perfect timing was apparently about 30
A
seconds
little early. Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Come on, sci-fi.
Well, there you
Is
go.
that just sci-fi though? I mean,
No,
I think that's yeah.
everywhere. Yeah, but
Do you how many
Come on,
little
Hollywood.
specific things do you have? My only complaint is really in general.
I've got
I-
some major writing complaints.
I mean, well,
obviously,
you go share some, Ross. Maybe it'll draw my
but let's
memory
just
on a
do all
couple
our
things.
complaints, and then we'll jump on the things we like.
Yeah.
That we've done before, just
Yeah.
to get some semblance of order here.
See, my so when I watched the movie the first time, I came out going, I was super meh about the film. On subsequent viewings, not previous viewings, I've liked it just a little bit more every time I've watched. My primary thought behind that is because expectations aren't as high the second time.
Expectations are always tricky.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is a whole thing. That's a whole thing society has a problem with, but I don't think we really need to discuss that here. So, other than that, my only real complaint with the movie was that the entire legend of Han Solo is contained within this movie. Everything that you ever heard about him or the Falcon or all those little references that was supposed to make Han Solo so great happened in the space of
3 days.
yeah, if that.
So he's really incredible to cram a lifetime of
Yeah.
fame into
Yeah.
a week.
Yeah, I'll go you one further on that. None of it. No, that doesn't happen in this movie. Han Solo gets a bunch of visually important stuff in this movie, and that's it.
Mhm.
Everything that makes Han Solo, quote unquote, is already in place. He's already a great pilot before this movie starts. This movie picks up with him stealing a speeder, and it's like, I'm going to be a pilot, and it's like, well, clearly you're already a bit of a pilot. Like, that's a pretty good chase at the beginning there.
Yeah.
And no, we never see, like, they have a deleted scene of him actually serving as a pilot in which I saw online.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and him like disobeying orders, and that's what gets him demoted down to infantry. But even so, I'm just like, yeah, it's like, as far as I can tell, you've never really gone through any formal training, or at least whatever training you did go through, you were already good enough
So
to get
he's
in
just
there.
a natural savant when it comes
Or we just missed where he learned that.
Yeah.
He's already a crack shot with a blaster.
to... Yeah.
He's already apparently really good at playing Sabacc. Like, and which I'm like, you can pick up the basics of playing poker in half an hour. It's not that hard.
Sabacc is more closer to 21, isn't it?
Blackjack, you mean?
Whatever.
The way they're putting their hands down is very pokerish. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've got a full Sabacc. I've got a straight whatever.
I think the rules are closer to like blackjack,
It's like
but
a blackjack
the way they
poker
play
mix,
it
yeah.
and the way it's portrayed is
like
always more
poker.
like poker.
Yeah. But either
Either
way,
way.
yeah,
Yeah.
either way, both of those games, it still applies to blackjack. You can pick up the basics of blackjack even faster.
Right.
Yeah,
than
in
poker.
5 minutes
Yeah.
you can do blackjack. Yeah.
But to actually master it to a degree that you're going to sit down with a bunch of people who are more or less professional gamblers
Yeah.
and come out on top that reliably, like, where
is
the heck did he pick
unbelievable.
that
Yeah.
up? He speaks Wookiee, which was its own. I have my own little problem with that. But it's like,
Yeah.
I already knew he understood it, but it's like, where did he pick that up on Corellia?
You know what? I was thinking also
He's-
about this in here. There's one conversation where he and Kira and Chewie are standing there talking. Chewie says something to doubt Han, and Han goes, don't listen to him, to Kira. He's assuming that she understands him,
Yep.
which would be the only other person in the movie. So maybe there's just a,
Maybe
Wookiee,
there is
Wookiee
a
is a
place that
required
they did- yeah,
class
sure.
in Corellian school, maybe. I don't know.
Or Corellian
Well, he
streets on
does
the
say
street
school.
he does say he like I picked it up on
and
Corellia.
he does
but,
say, I don't speak it that well.
Yeah.
but yeah, it is.
But yeah, it's
weird.
just another thing he already has. And that was my biggest thing watching this movie, where I was just like, Han Solo is already Han Solo. This isn't the story of like, we talked with Rogue One about how, these are the different ways that you usually make a prequel work. And one of those is that we pick up and we're going to show you how this person became that person. And that's what this movie looks like it's doing, but it doesn't. Mm-hmm. He already is that person. It's just we're going to show you how this person got a bunch of stuff.
The only thing that the movie actually shows you him doing is the Kessel Run.
And it shows you how he became friends with Chewie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, see, and those are the two things in particular that I'm talking about, because those are supposed to be... I mean, yes, he's already naturally a good gunfighter, etc., etc.
Well,
but like the Kessel Run, which no one was supposed to be able to do. In old canon, we didn't actually have an average time for the Kessel Run, right? We just knew that 12 parsecs was fast.
In old canon, we did.
Did we?
Yeah, it was
it
a
was
book that
like
I
20.
read, which means it must have been like the X-Wing
new
series
canon.
or something.
No, I think old canon was similar,
Old canon, it was like 14 or 16 was like 16 was like the average, like 14 was like the previous,
fast.
like, wow, that was fast. And
I will
then
go
12
home.
was, you're
I
stupid.
will
That's
go
crazy.
home and I will dig out my old Star Wars Encyclopedia out of storage, and I will, because I know it was in there. I remember reading
it does,
right, so.
yeah.
Well, because I remember I thought they said it here, where the old record was 20-ish parsecs, or that's what they said the distance was normally.
Yeah.
Because in old canon it was more of a race, and here it's just the path you take away from Kessel.
Yeah, in the old one, it was a race around Kessel and like through the Maw or something.
I thought it was like I thought Kessel had a lot of like asteroids around it. It was just you had to do a quick path from outside the asteroids to inside.
Yeah, something like that. But
no, hold on. So those awesome things that Han Solo did, it all happens right here, right? Yeah. He rescues Chewie, he does the Kessel Run, and those are all the things that Han Solo was known for throughout the universe.
Yeah, he gets the Millennium Falcon from Lando.
And so I mean, it's all happening right here. So his entire life, other than that,
and then he goes to work for Jabba several years before. Like we've got a good space of time before he's going to actually have a problem with Jabba at the end, which is fine, but it's just like convenient. I'm also going to go get my first job with Jabba.
Yeah, right. And I was okay with that, because by the time A New Hope happened, so this movie Solo, by the way, takes place 10 years before A New Hope.
Okay,
so Han Solo is about 20, give or take a couple of years. This is then 5 years before Rebels starts. So the rebellion is actually formed at this point, but they're still like the council of the rebellion is formed, but everybody is still in separate cells.
Yeah, they're
terrorist cells, cells, mind you.
Just
rebels.
Don't even go there.
Freedom fighter cells.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, I'm more along the lines with Chris here. I'm more aligned with Chris as far as Han Solo is already Han Solo in the Han Solo origin story.
Well, and here's my problem with that is it means that Han barely has a character arc here. Like, he is our protagonist, no disputing that. His name is the movie.
Yep.
But he doesn't really.
His name is the movie. I always forget that this movie is Star Wars Solo a Star Wars story, and I always call it Han Solo a Star Wars story. Yeah. Like it is. So he is so the movie. Yeah.
But he barely there's a bit of a character arc that they're trying to establish here with it's like, oh yeah, it's like I learned from Beckett. I've learned to be hard, but it's like he grew up on the streets. Like this isn't really a revelation so much as and again it's another of the things where it's like Han Solo's just outwitting veteran professionals in this field with very little experience, and it's like, he doesn't really have a character.
And this is why I think it would have been better served as a 2-part movie. I think they planned for it with how much they leave hanging at the end of that. I think they planned for that. But. I think it was originally supposed to be a trilogy, and then it bombed. I wish they would have done this. Would be like my ideal of the movie. Would be you have one movie set on Corellia and then his time in the military, where we actually see him as a younger kid, like a little kid, like 6, 7, 8 years old, actually learning the skills, learning how to pickpocket, learning how to play sabacc, learning how to steal his first speeder, and sucking at it, and then getting better, and and actually gaining these skills that he uses.
Yeah,
and then we see a movie where either this would be the second half of this first movie or a separate movie to itself. He gets off Corellia. That's the end of the first movie, or the first half of this first movie. And just like it plays out in Solo, I'd be even fine with that. He leaves Kira behind. He wants to get back. Whatever. Cool, leave it there. Then we see his time in the military where he's going, yeah, the Empire's not great, but hey, this is a lot better than the slums of Corellia. I'm in the academy. I'm getting 3 square meals a day. This isn't so bad. I'm a TIE pilot. This is terrific. This is what I wanted to do. And he actually receives formal training. And so, sure, his background as a smuggler, a street kid, is going to give him some tricks up his sleeve that these other kids might not have. And so he does kind of stand out.
Or just the balls to actually, commit to something ludicrous.
Yeah, something crazy, but so he is getting sort of set apart as a cut above the rest as a pilot. And that they're going, yeah, you have this raw talent. Now let's refine it.
Which is a lot more like the Legends canon.
Right. And, so let's refine it. Let's see this movie. And then, of course, he is mouthy. He's sassy. He doesn't want to do shady things if he doesn't have to, because
except that he
but so growing up as a kid on Corellia, he's going, well, I have to do shady things to survive. Now I'm working for the government. Why should I have to do shady things? Why is the government doing the shady things? You should be the ones providing safety and security, but you're clearly not. Why am I strafing this village? Why am I whatever shady thing you want the Empire to have him do? And that's when he's like, no, piss off. And they're like, you're out. Boom, you're gone. Get out of here. Get to the infantry. Go die on the front lines in the mud. And then we see him, disillusioned there. We see more of him questioning his superior officers and whatever. And that's the end of the first movie. Then the second movie would be Solo, a Star Wars story that we saw. And then the third movie would be him, hey, Jabba, yeah, let me come work for you. And we see him become a successful smuggler for Jabba, where he doesn't necessarily have to hurt people and do what he considers morally wrong, of actually directly abusing innocent people. And it's like, yeah, I might run spice, but hey, if you want to be a drug-addled, loser, that's your choice. I'm not directly abusing innocent people here. And that would have been, I think, a much better
My main problem with that approach is that really, I just want to go to any franchise out there and just be like, really, at this point, we should all know that if your plan involves the words prequel trilogy, it's not something you should do.
And I agree with you on that. I agree with you. I think this movie
I don't want more of this story. I want less in a lot of ways.
And I actually agree with you. I'm just saying with what they tried to do, they failed, so that since they were clearly going in that direction anyway, they should have just done it right. Yeah. But I agree with you. Solo should have been a solo movie.
Yeah.
Just standalone one
and
movie.
The thing is, almost no one in here has a genuine character arc. Kira has a bit of one where it's more just like, I obviously have a plan of my own. Oh wait, Han's a distraction from this. Do I go along? Nope. Which at least there's a character choice there, which is development of its own. She's giving him up.
But there was, for me, the whole military scene of him in the army serves zero purpose, less than no purpose. Why couldn't they have just had Beckett on Corellia stealing coaxium from some shipment on Corellia and have Han observe it and meet them that way? You could have saved 15 minutes of the army in the mud.
They're doing it because Legends canon had him in the military. He has the military stripe on the pants that he wears around all the time.
But this is what I'm saying, is you tried to do too much for one movie.
At least in old canon, that wasn't a military stripe. That was a Corellian stripe.
In Legends canon,
he was he did serve as in the
that
Imperial
stripe
Navy.
Is the reason that people gave him a backstory in the military, is because it was a military stripe in real life. That's where that story came from. Whether or not in canon that's what that stripe was. That stripe on his pants in the original movies is the reason that writers gave him a background in the military. And that's really the only reason that's there, is as a nod to, Solo's got to be in the military.
See, and that was one of the other things I found interesting, is that they checked all the old canon boxes, but did it in different ways than the old canon did.
Which I'm fine with them doing that kind of thing, especially because so much of the old canon is not good. I'm fine with them saying, let's take it and make it better, but I think they tried to do too much here. And so it's you either need to show him on Corellia and have him rescued straight from there and devote those 10 or 15 minutes of the military to Corellia and building that story out a little better, or just have him drop a few lines of dialogue to be like, yep, I grew up on the streets of Corellia, I'm an orphan, cool, and have him just start in the military and give us more of his military career, show him getting kicked out of the Navy and getting put in the Army, and have him meet Beckett like he does in the movie. Like, it's like one of those has to go. You try to do too much, and if you had gotten rid of one of those,
especially at the beginning, it has a similar Rogue One jumpy problem where it's
so
just moving from one thing to
and
the
that
other.
even from the first time watching this in the theater, that I was going, one of these stories needs to go to make room for the other.
Well, and it's
now, as a fan of Star Wars Legion, Fantasy Flight's game Star Wars Legion, I'm super glad they showed us the military stuff, because eventually we're going to get those mud troopers and the cool, like, flak ATST things. It's going to be sweet. Can't wait to get the models, but story-wise, there's just not room for those two stories. They need to get rid of them.
Well, and with that overcrowding is part of why they don't have time for much of a character arc. Part of it, too, is that they decided to just already have Han be Han. But it also results in a movie that feels pretty shallow. Like, there's not a lot of emotional depth here. They're trying to give us emotional depth between Han and Kira, but it's undermined by the fact that we already know that Kira's not sticking around, one way or another.
Well,
one way or the other, she's not going to be around.
Yes, that's true.
We don't necessarily know how she's not going to be around, and I do appreciate that this movie chose not to kill her as the means of getting rid of her. And I'll get into that when we get into what we like about this. But one way or the other, we already know she's not the love of Han's life, so to speak, in the long run, or at least the only.
And even from my very first watching it in the theater, the very first time you see her, when he's like, oh, look what I got, and she's, like, oh, that's really cool, so we can get out of here, and then, like, he kisses her. I remember leaning over to my wife, and I said, she doesn't look that into it when she's kissing him. Like, she doesn't look super into the kiss. She doesn't look like she's excited to be here. And I said, I bet she's just using him to get out of here.
Well, and I can buy that she's clearly got some real conflict going on over him. Like,
later on,
whether or not I could buy that she's not necessarily as into him, but that doesn't mean she's willing to just betray him.
And I don't even think it's necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I was just saying, I noticed it right off the bat from the very first thing that she is using Han literally from the first time we see her. I picked up on the fact that she's using him. And so I was going, okay, so she's going to be a problem. She's going to betray him down the line in the movie. There's no way.
I also think that I don't think that's what they were going for at that point, mainly because she tells him to run.
So they accidentally stumbled into it?
Kind of, yeah.
I could see that, yeah.
But so that's undermined by the fact that we know she's not going to be around. It's undermined by the fact that she acted that really well, and so we know she's not as into him as he is into her.
I think, maybe I should have saved that for the things I liked, but...
Anyway. But yeah, it's undermined by a lot of things, and so it doesn't have the emotional weight that they want it to. Lando and Han, there's not an emotional connection there. That's not what theirs is about. L3 and Lando is supposed to be an emotional thing, but again, we don't know either of these characters really well. They're side characters in someone else's movie that we didn't get a lot of time with, and so there is some, like, oh, when L3 gets shot, but it's not a lot.
In thinking about, I don't know, the emotional, I agree with you, there's not as much emotional connection between Han and Kira, because the audience can tell that Kira's not into it. However, I still had some emotion because I have been in Han's position where, like, you think you're in a good relationship, that you're both, like, super down with everything, that you're super into it, and she's not, and you are so blinded by your love that you can't tell.
Yeah.
And so I watch it and I go, I can feel you, Han.
And I'm not saying it's an emotionless movie, just an emotionally shallow movie. It's not Rogue One, but it is.
You just had to slip it in.
I did have to slip it in. No, but it's really, like, if I'm being fair, it's basically the same problem that Rogue One has, only Rogue One was trying to do it with even more characters. And they were and that's the problem, is that they were like, this one feels more like we're not trying to develop Han that much because we're afraid to mess with Han. Because we know that Han Solo is the favorite Star Wars character. Polls have shown that.
Yeah.
But so we're afraid of messing too much with Han. So instead of showing you how Han became Han, because we're afraid that's going to bother you, he's just already Han. And so we're not even going to try. But anyway, this isn't about Rogue One.
To be fair, though, like, that is kind of a legitimate risk, though. Like, what if they had given us the how does Han go from
which is why they should have made this movie in the first place. But
I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that. I'm glad they did it. It's nice to see the Kessel Run. It is
for me, the emotional weight in this movie lies in Han and Chewie's relationship,
which is great.
Getting to actually see Chewie interact with people on an ongoing, but like as we were watching this, I kept joking when
It
they
was great,
when
listener.
they first meet Dryden Voss. And Dryden meets Han and it's just like, all right, Han Solo, and then turns it's like, and Chewbacca. And I was like, no wonder Chewie got into the criminal life. Criminals are the only people that pay attention to him. Like, Dryden Voss immediately is just like, let me also acknowledge you.
Yep.
Beckett is, hey, Chewbacca, let me include you when I'm talking here. Nobody does that, ever, for Chewie. Like, poor Chewie.
Yep.
His entire life. I almost feel like he's got this weird Stockholm syndrome, like where he's been abused all his life, and so he likes all the good guys because he thinks he's supposed to be neglected. Like, poor Chewie. Anyway.
Oh, man.
But yeah, Han and Chewie, I wish there was a lot more of that. Like, honestly, if I were to rewrite this, I just want to drop Kira just like yesterday's garbage, throw it out. I don't want her around. She's pointless. We already know that that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We already know that it's going to fall apart.
I could see that.
Whereas Han and Chewie is going to be around, and I do want to see that relationship. Han and Lando, although they don't have a real relationship, I do like seeing where they are at and how that developed. And Han and Beckett has some genuine emotional connection to, for me, a greater degree than Kira, just because it is him like...
Well, and that's interesting, too, because if you cut Kira out, it honestly doesn't change much for Han. His motivation to get out remains the same, which is life sucks here in the underworld of Corellia, so literally anything, anywhere is going to be better than this.
Yeah.
Military? Awesome. Great. Sign me up. Get me out of here. Oh, the military sucks. I'm too sassy for my shorts.
Well, and I'm going to get killed. Okay. Like, get me out of here.
Yeah, you can remove Kira and basically nothing changes from
basically,
Solo.
Like, and the only thing I would point out is, like, Han's motivation for remaining with Beckett after the first job went south, and Beckett's literally telling him, no, don't do this, and Han is sticking around. Basically, the implication there is, I have to get back to Corellia. This is worth the risk for me.
Sure.
Because of her. But even then, it's still shallow.
It's still pretty flimsy, and without Kira, it's not like it would have been difficult to find proper motivation.
And that's what I'm saying. It's already flimsy,
yeah.
too. The first time I watched this, I was like, really, Han? Like, that seems really like... There's no other way you can think of to make money other than getting in with one of the biggest and worst crime syndicates around in the worst way possible? Like, what? Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the things that would have lasted are the best parts of this movie for me. That is Chewie and Lando and all that, and every moment spent on anything else, like I can buy. That's why I'm like, yeah, sure, keep Beckett. Or if you're going to keep Kira, I do like, and it's Woody Harrelson.
He's great.
But like
he's essentially playing
I
himself
love Emilia
from,
Clarke too, but I don't want Kira around. Like,
I love that.
That
Beckett is essentially Woody Harrelson's character from Now You See Me, only put into Star Wars.
It's good.
Oh, it's quite good. You would like it. If you like Beckett and Woody Harrelson as Beckett, you'd like that. It's the same kind of snark. I'm the man with the plan. Follow my orders. Everything will be okay. We'll all make a good profit. Lots of sarcasm. The jokes. Cool. It's good.
Maybe one of these days.
I didn't know you hadn't seen it yet.
No, I haven't seen either of those. But I could even see dropping Beckett and keeping Kira. Like, you could make that work. But the problem is just that there's too many extra characters.
Yeah, I think Beckett's a way better character than Kira, though. So if we're going to kill one of them, let's get rid of Kira.
The main reason they're not going to do that is because then it's just too big of a sausage fest. But and
I'd be all right with that.
Honestly, and I hesitate to say this, but I almost feel like their best bet would have been either to kill off Beckett in that initial job and have him manage to convince what's her name? Val to keep him around, which would have been more emotionally meaningful for me.
Really interesting.
Because she didn't want him along in the first place.
Yeah. Boy, that would have been been a way cool twist.
To have this love-hate relationship between the two of them. As much as I love Beckett's character, I think keeping Val just from a writing standpoint would have been a lot more engaging. But or to keep her alive for that whole thing and have what's his name? Jon Favreau's character.
Monkey guy.
Yeah. I specifically took note of his name.
Quill or something like that? No.
Monkey guy. Anyway, to have him, let him die, maybe put someone else in there to die. But they're already introducing them so quickly and then killing them off that... And Beckett's gotten the most development, so I kind of feel like killing Beckett off and then developing Val from there would have worked a lot better. But, yeah. But anyway, there's too many characters. Like it's a similar problem to Rogue One. It's just that there's so many people on screen that it clutters what could be a very simple and straightforward narrative where we focus on building these relationships so that they'll be meaningful. But we just never quite have time because we're simultaneously trying to build relationships with a bunch of new characters, with her and with Dragon Voss and with
Rio
Beckett.
Durant.
Yes, thank you.
That's his name. Dang it.
But yeah, we're trying to build up his relationship with Kira. We're trying to build up his relationship with Beckett. We're trying to build up a bit of the background of what's going on with her and Dryden Voss and Dryden Voss and Beckett and all these interactions between these new characters. But then we also have to shoehorn in the characters that we already know he's supposed to know.
So I had to look up Jon Favreau on Solo IMDb. So I started just scrolling through the other characters. Mm-hmm. The lady who voices Lady Proxima, her name is Linda Hunt. She
I love Linda
looks like Edna Mode from The Incredibles. Like that's who I thought it was. I'm like, Edna Mode? Oh wait, no, that's a character. Who the heck is this? Wow. Anyway, go look it up.
Cool.
Wow.
But yeah, it's too much. It's too much, too clutter. And that shows up in all the aspects of the story. It's not enough time on Corellia. It's not enough time in the military. It's not enough time really anywhere.
Which is why I think they really should have made 2 movies. Like there's just
looking at as we were watching
on.
it, I was like, they clearly were planning on more than one. But again, they should have saved some of this for that, I think. But
or even like you could do Corellia military movie 1 and then Beckett heist / Jabba heist movie 2, and you would have had a pretty solid.
You know, I don't even know if you would need a Jabba heist. I mean, I think what they did was just saying, "Yeah, I'm going to Tatooine next" is fine.
Yeah, I really appreciated that they didn't actually say Jabba's name. I'm like, thank you for trying to at least keep it slightly subtle.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Because, of course, we all know what you're referring to.
Because one thing this movie did a lot of was references.
References. So many.
Yes.
Okay. Like, yeah. We'll get into that in a second. With writing, this also has some very info-dumpy exchanges. Mm-hmm. Like, it actually even starts out the text at the beginning, the title text that... I feel like they just shoved on there because of people's whining about Rogue One not having a crawl.
Yeah.
And so they're
I wish it would have, though. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel like Star Wars without it.
See, but that's the thing is, it's, for me, this really did feel tacked on. Like, I was reading that and going, you didn't need any of that. Like, 95% of that was extraneous and is imparted through the scenes that come after this. Mm-hmm. And the other 5% you could have found a way to fit in there. Like, you didn't need any of that text. It's just there.
Which is why I wish that, man, this movie needed one of the plot points gone. Like, you could have had the opening crawl or the opening text been info dump about his time as a Corellian, whatever. And then he got drafted, or, and then you see him joining in the military and, like, cut right to the military.
See, but that was one of the few complaints I did not have about Rogue One is I'm all for cutting the title text on these side story movies. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, see, I'm the same.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as I like that for its classic feel for the Star Wars movies, you don't need it on all of them. And it's an old-fashioned kind of gimmicky thing that the Star Wars movies do their best to use well, but it's rarely a necessary thing in storytelling.
Well, but I think at this point you kind of have to have them for the main line.
Oh yeah, for the main ones, you're not getting rid of them, and that's fine. But for the stories, I'm wholly support the decision to drop that from the side story movies. But
it makes me sad. I love.
But yeah, then throughout all of it, you just have a lot of sequences where it's like, Kira, look, I got this. Oh, we can enact our plan to do this. It's like, yes, that is the plan, that we can do this, that we can do with this. And it's like, people do that in real life. People will, like, oh, let me repeat the plan almost as a way for me to externalize this in a way and make sure I've got it right. Like, we're really going to do this. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not utterly unrealistic, but it does become this rather maiden butlery dialogue.
Before every episode, when I'm like, so we're all here to record the episode that we're going to talk about today that we've had planned for weeks. Like that?
Yes, exactly.
Every week, you guys, I just can't get away from it. I have to
But I mean, particularly in that setting where it's like, this is our secret plan that we don't want people to know about because they're going to rat us out. It's like, we're not going to explicitly detail the plan. Then you've got Beckett and his crew waltzing through trenches, laughing their heads off about how, like, oh, we're so sneaky.
That's true, though, and especially, like, getting off Corellia, because that's the first time they do it, and it's pretty blatant when he hands her the coaxium, and they're like, cool, so we can use this to buy our way off the thing and get a ship, and it would have been better to show instead of tell, and just be like, oh my gosh, you got the quaxing. We can do our plan. Yes.
Yeah.
And then
Or
you
even
see
just
them
like,
walking up to the lady to buy their way out, and the audience, hopefully, would have been smart enough to realize, oh, their plan is to bribe the exit official and
Or
let
just,
them out.
yeah, you don't need to tell us the plan in advance.
Yeah.
Later on, they don't tell us the plan to get them in and out of Kessel in advance. They just show it as it happens. That's perfectly fine. You can do that. And so that is a sequence where it should have just been like, look what I've got, and her just be like, holy crap, do you know this is worth like this much? And him be like, yeah,
let's go.
that's
The
more
plan,
than enough. Let's do this. We're out of here. And that's all we need.
Yep.
And there's a lot of, and I mean, and again, it's and I'm not, and I apologize, like, I'm not doing this to harp on Rogue One, but it's like Rogue One's level of info dump was next level stuff. Like, it's a problem because all of the dialogue between Cassian and Jyn was info dump, and this one at least managed to get some actual character building moments in, and to have these moments that are building stuff and not just be info dump. And even the info dumpy ones aren't horribly egregious, but it is all too much. We're dropping too much background information in dialogue. There had to be better ways to do that, and if not, then you're telling the wrong story. Like, rewrite the story so that you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But that is one of my problems with this. Yeah. And then so writing wise, I'm going to jump to my biggest problem with Solo that I hated from the beginning, and its name is Darth Maul. And I just, when that happened, like, Darth Maul is awesome. He was awesome when he first showed up, and we were all just like, woo, he's a scary villain. He's barely said 2 lines, but he's just intense, and he's he's so visually engaging and brooding, and Ray Park has that intense physicality that just sells him so well. And then they killed him off, and it's like, oh, that's kind of a waste. So I get why they decided to bring him back in comics, and then later in the TV shows.
TV shows first, and then comics.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I trust you.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're challenging me?
I said that, and then I was like, did I really just say that to Kyle? Okay, so I get why they brought him back for the show, and then the comics and everything.
Yeah, that was Dave Filoni specifically saying, I, like everyone else, wish we had more of him.
Yeah.
So let's bring him back and do more with him.
Yeah.
Now, and of course, the biggest problem is bringing anyone back from the dead is always gimmicky.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's really hard to pull off in any story, to pulling off bringing a character back and revealing, oh, they didn't actually die, even in a scenario where it's totally plausible that force and medical and whatever, hand wave, sure, he survived that somehow. He survived being bisected somehow. I'm honestly fine with that, but not in this manner. It's one thing to reveal that a character's still alive and then give us the background of how that happened and da-da-da-da-da in a series of movies. It's another thing to kill off a character in one movie, not mention them in the next movie, or the next movie, or the next movie, or the next movie, or the next movie,
and then...
or then for most of the movie where they show up again, and then just drop them in out of nowhere, and be like, oh, look who it is. And what I was saying before after we've finished the movie is just that it's like, I can't do the visuals here, but it's like if the Earth is the size of the, visually representational here, the Earth is the size of the Star Wars TV shows viewership. And the sun next to that is the size of the Star Wars movies viewership. Like, there are exponentially more people watching these movies than there are watching those shows. So the vast majority of your audience that comes to this movie is going to come out of it going, what the crap?
And that's exactly what my brothers and father said when they saw him at the end.
See, and I already knew the background. I knew how they brought Maul back. I knew what he was doing, all of that. And I still went, what? Like, no, he hasn't been anywhere. You can't just drop him back into the movies like this. It makes no sense. It's weird. So, for those who might not know what Chris is talking about, in Star Wars The Clone Wars, in season, I want to say 4, might even be the end of 3. Ooh. Somewhere in Clone Wars. Anyway, well into the Clone Wars, they reveal that Darth Maul survived his bifurcation by lightsaber at the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi in episode 1.
And remember, Clone Wars takes place in between episodes 2 and 3.
Yes.
And so then he comes to power, creates a criminal syndicate empire.
He's not too happy with
in the
Palpatine
Outer
for dropping
Rim.
him like yesterday's trash.
So he creates sort of a third front in the Clone Wars. Palpatine learns who is at the top of this little pyramid over here, that it's his former apprentice, and decides, there can only be 2, and I've already replaced you, so I'm going to come swat you down. At the end, it must be end of season 3 then, because it's season 5, at the end of season 5, that Darth Sidious, Chancellor Palpatine, comes and has an awesome lightsaber duel with Darth Maul and his brother, quote-unquote, Savage Opress.
Yes.
And the Emperor, or the soon-to-be Emperor, wipes the floor with both of them. He outright kills Savage Opress dead.
Mm-hmm.
Darth Maul, he beats down and basically gets him to surrender, at which point he begins electrocuting him. And Darth Maul is like begging for mercy, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to let you live. I do have plans for you, but I'm not going to kill you. But don't you ever dare think about challenging me again." Mm-hmm. And then that's the last we see of Darth Maul
in Clone Wars.
In Clone Wars, he was supposed to show back up again later, in like season 7 of Clone Wars. That never happened, and he was apparently going to have escaped the clutches of Darth Sidious / the Emperor, and like gone into like a self-imposed exile in the Outer Rim, where he again started building up his criminal empire. Yeah, but we never see that because Clone Wars got canceled when Disney bought it. Yeah. So the last we see is the Emperor going, "Oh, I have plans for you, cackle, cackle," right? And then we see him in Solo.
No, we see him in Rebels.
Or we see him in Rebels. Excuse me.
Oh, but
which technically takes place after
so
Solo.
Then, according to the in-universe timeline, we see him in
our
Solo.
Timeline, the next time we saw him was
in Rebels. But I'm trying to take myself through and the listener through Darth Maul's life
story.
Mm-hmm. So in universe, the next time he shows up is in Solo, where he is the master of at least one, but actually it implies more criminal syndicates. You have Red Dawn, which he is in charge of, or Crimson Dawn, excuse me. Red Dawn is communists in Wisconsin or something like that. But he's got an alliance with the Pikes, another criminal syndicate. So he's again built himself back up. Apparently, with the Emperor's not knowing about it or blessing, like it's very confusing.
Yep.
And it's 10 years before Rebels, so it's only been 5 years.
Or 5 years before
the
originals.
Yeah, so it's like it.
And then where is he at in
means
Rebels?
This is only 8 years after the Clone Wars have ended. So I'm going, you've escaped and rebuilt everything? Like, this is really impressive.
Well, but we also do see in Clone Wars he's very efficient with his rebuilding of criminal empires.
And then, only 5 years after Solo, actually it would be
5 and a bit,
6.5 years. Had to run through how much time passes in Rebels. 6.5 years into, and it's like the third season of Rebels. Mm-hmm. No, it's the season finale of season 2 that we meet him. So basically season 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now he's got nothing. Now he is completely debased. He's by himself. He has literally his lightsaber / cane.
Go Kira. But
so who knows? Well, what has gone on here?
But does it explicitly say he's got nothing? Maybe he's just off on his own.
He is on. What is the planet? It's the planet in Rebels where there was a big battle. It's the season finale of season 2. Anyway, he's on that planet by himself. He is actively being hunted by the Inquisitorius, which is why they show up. And they're like, "Oh, there are Jedi here? Oh, Rebels, that's kind of convenient that you're here too. That's great, because we're already here hunting this guy, so we'll just take you both. This is just a double win for us. We can snag both of you." So it's like, man, Darth Maul has a high point of working with Darth Sidious, gets cut in half. Kind of a low point, I think we would agree.
Yeah.
Then he builds himself
Gets cut in half by a Padawan.
No kidding.
Who had the low ground.
The low ground, no less, yeah.
Didn't even have ground, man.
Yeah, he had nothing. And then he builds himself up to the height of this criminal empire. So he is even bigger than he is in Rogue One because he's the head of the Pikes and Black Sun. Like, he is head of all and the Hutt cartel as well. Like, he's the head of all criminal organizations in the Outer Rim.
Then he gets taken down again.
Then he gets taken down by the Emperor, beats him down. Then, by Solo, he's built himself up to the head of at least one and powerful alliances with others to be taken down again by himself, or, to be seen where he's just on his own, by his lonesome in Rebels.
Before that stupid Padawan finally got around to finishing the job.
Yeah, it's like, man, it seems... The first rise to power...
Been a weird roller coaster.
That has been a really weird roller coaster. Like,
Poor guy.
First time...
Yeah, I kind of feel for him now.
Like, the first time in Clone Wars where he builds himself up, that kind of makes sense. Where it's like, okay, you're motivated by revenge. You're Sith, after all. Like, you're angry. Okay, cool. That makes sense. You're seeking for an avenue to power to take down your former master. The avenue that you choose is by uniting all these clans and cartels and mafia people into a fighting force under your command. That seems like a reasonable approach to things. And then you get cut down. It doesn't seem plausible for you to take that exact path again, completely unnoticed.
At the very least, without Palpatine noticing. Yeah, so maybe he has Palpatine's okay for that, but then what?
But then why would Palpatine let him do it?
I'm going to back up. It doesn't even make sense for him to be in this movie to the people who know the backstory of how he's still alive.
It would make sense for him to still be alive, but not to be in the position that he's in for the movie. It doesn't... I loved the name drop and the little, here
that's
it is.
The thing. If this were a side thing here, but they clearly build up through that movie, it's some pretty blatant blink, blink, blinkety, blink, blink of Dryden Voss, I have a boss.
Or...
and you know who he is. He's important to everybody. Audience, did you hear that? I have a boss and he's important. And then later,
the other way that it could make sense is if the timing of Han Solo were different. If the timing of Han Solo were during the Clone Wars, where he is the undisputed master of the underworld.
Yeah.
And then, oh my gosh, he's the big scary boss that even Dryden Voss is afraid of. I'd buy that because he is shown, Crimson Dawn isn't even anywhere close to Black Sun levels of being ruthless and vicious in lore.
Yeah.
And he literally walks into the conference room of the Black Sun and decapitates everyone who disagrees with him and looks at the last guy and says, so are you willing to cooperate? Or should I decapitate you too? Okay, this is a guy who's reasonably fearsome. You know what I mean? So I could understand, it would make sense if Solo... And that was actually the first time I watched it. I was going, wait, when is this taking place?
Yeah.
Because I thought this was after Clone... I mean, the Empire is here, clearly. So it can't be during Clone Wars. So then how is Darth Maul in charge of a criminal underworld? That's during Clone Wars. And then I had to stop and go, okay, no, this is just his second rise to power, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Because the Emperor specifically says in Clone Wars, you do this again... you don't get a second chance. You step out of line again, you are dead.
So in other words, they're going to make another Darth Maul story somewhere.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Or maybe it'll just forever be a hanging thread. But
it's Darth Maul. He'll get it eventually.
Yeah, he'll get around. Yeah. He just keeps popping back up.
He's gotten 2 comic series which were decent. He has one comic series that takes place before Episode 1. Darth Sidious has basically just barely selected him as his new apprentice. And he's super gung-ho, yeah, I'm filled with rage and anger and hate. Let's do this. Yeah, let me go kill something. And Sidious is rein it in a bit. I've got something. I got my plans in works already. The wheels are already in motion. Don't screw anything up. Yeah. There will be a time and a place for you to go full crazy on everybody. Just hold on. And then he goes and kills a Padawan anyway. And almost alerts everybody to the whole thing beforehand anyway. And then there's the Son of Dathomir series, which was Clone Wars episodes that were unaired that got adapted to comic to be this was some of his story that we didn't get to tell. It's a whole Siege of Mandalore stuff.
Cool.
But for this movie, it was an odd choice at the very least, and really unfulfilling. Especially because I was watching the whole time, racking my brain, what criminal bosses could, like, making him be Jabba would be lame, especially once they blatantly referenced Jabba, and I was like, okay, so it's not Jabba. And I'm sitting here trying to remember all the crime bosses from the Legends canon going, are they building up? But this is too much build-up for that. Like, that wouldn't work. And then they showed who it was, and I was just like, that's still too much build-up. Like, what?
Here's another thing that could have made more sense is have it be the Emperor. Who's going, hey, I've played both sides before. Yeah. I control the legitimate market. Why not control the black market?
Well, see, and when that hologram first shows up and you just see robes and what ends up being a foot, I was like, oh, it's the Emperor. And then it wasn't.
No, see, because, well, I'm just going to say it. I'm more hardcore than you are, Ross.
Sure.
So when I see it, they specifically, like, showed just enough of the leg that I'm like, I have seen that robot leg before. This is Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And then, there's the voice, and I'm like, oh, yep, that's the guy who voices him from Clone Wars. Cool, that's neat.
Which made me feel a little bit for Ray Park. I'm just like, man,
he's got screwed again.
You never get to voice him.
Yeah, and I was watching it this time knowing that it's like, it's the voiceover or whatever, and you can see it's just a hair out of sync. Like, towards the end, I was specifically watching his lips and listening for the sound, and it's really, really good until, like, right at the very end, and I was like, oh, there's just a hair off. But, whatever. They should have let Ray Park voice it, frankly.
Yeah, I love Ray Park. He's great.
Yeah.
So.
But he loves that character like nobody else, too.
Yeah, he does. I think that encompasses my biggest problems with this is Darth Maul, info dumping, and like the flat, no depth, like the shallow, no emotion to this, and then the weirdly techno-babbling nature of it. So.
There's I was super excited seeing it in theaters the first time and realizing that it's Darth Maul, and I was like smacking my wife's leg, and she's like, "Stop! You're hurting me." I'm like, "It's Darth Maul! It's Darth Maul! That's so cool!" But I'm exactly that niche market that they were dropping the Easter egg for.
Which I don't want to say I have a problem with pandering to the real fans. Like, that makes sense. But at the same time, there are better ways to do it.
So, my feelings on it are like, I was excited that they gave me the Easter egg, but the Easter egg makes no sense. It would be like getting an Easter egg for Christmas. It's like you got the wrong holiday. I appreciate the Easter egg, but this is Christmas.
I will add the other thing that was most glaringly frustrating for me about that movie, and I will sum it up with those stupid dice.
Oh, yes.
Now,
yes.
It's not that I have a problem with the dice themselves per se. It's just This can be a problem with a lot of prequels and everything, is we're going to take some insignificant element of the originals and we're going to try and give it more significance. It already didn't really work for me in The Last Jedi. And this movie's just going to 100%, where The Last Jedi was like, yeah, we'll use this because it's been there. And even then it was like, what? These are supposed to be significant? Like when Luke hands them to Leia.
Which is why I think they showed up in Solo, is everybody went, what the heck is going on in Last Jedi? Where are these dice?
Yeah, they'd already filmed those in the, like, I feel... Either way, though, it's a sin of The Last Jedi as well, that it's like we're trying to build up too much mythos around insignificant things. Like, these dice don't matter, and they focus on those dice so much in that movie. But it's not just the dice, it's too much reference for me. It's too much self-reference to the Star Wars universe, to a degree that I just sit there going, I get it. We like Easter eggs. Woo! Stop it, though. Like, this is too much.
Well, if the Easter eggs were good...
Well, then it's just that it's to a degree that it mars my ability to enjoy the story, because they keep knocking me out of the story by going, get it?
Well,
get it?
I think the Easter eggs are fine when the Easter eggs are good. The dice are not good Easter eggs. There is a great Easter egg, though, in Solo. Fantastic. And I was proud of myself for noticing it the very first time in the theater. So I was like, oh, sweet, I don't even have to wait for the internet for this. I saw that! Yes! I will get to be the people on the internet that point this out. And I did. In Dryden's throne room, for lack of a better word for it, there's the golden head that Indiana Jones takes off the pillar and replaces with sand.
Oh, really?
Oh, is it really?
Among all the little doodads and knickknacks and whatever he's got on display, you see that golden head. It's fantastic. And I was like, wait a minute, is that... Like, the first time I saw it in theaters, I'm like, wait, was that... That'd be a really cool... And so then I started, I dropped everything else in the scenes, and I'm like, I'm just looking in the background. I'm going to show that table again. And then they do, and I'm like, oh, there it is! Yeah. Yes! I wasn't imagining it.
I don't mind that. Yeah, like that's really stuff that's going to remain background.
Yeah.
Where it should be, and then you can pick it out later.
Exactly.
Stuff that, like, another one that I like is when we first see Chewie's prison where Han gets dropped, that they've got that droid there that's been torn to pieces, and it's just this nice little moment of just like, you tore that droid's arms out of its socket.
Yes, I noticed that too.
and it's not, it's just a little bit,
Yes,
and it's not a big deal. But when it's
But when they take the Easter egg and shove it in the forefront
when
and keep
it's
putting it in front of
Beckett
your face.
wearing the guard uniform that Lando wears in Return of the Jedi when he's in
Oh,
Jabba's
yeah.
palace, that's too much for me. Like, that's where it's like, if that's where I get knocked out of the story and I go, whose job was it to pick through this script and look for all of the places where we can shove something else in? Like, that's what it feels like to me. It doesn't feel like a natural, like, oh, they just had this on the ship, that's why Lando used it later. It feels like, where can we fit something else in, guys? Let's jam something else in there.
I didn't mind that one. I thought,
I probably
I
wouldn't
might-
have minded that if there weren't so many of them.
see, and I think the reason I didn't mind it is because there were so many others that were more blatant that, by comparison, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, see, that one was one of
grievous.
the big ones for me, but
No, for me, the dice, I was just like,
yeah, the dice.
who cares about the dice?
Yeah.
You never see them once. They matter zero in the original trilogy. Oh,
I was surprised.
You see them once.
They are
I was
there.
surprised to see that they really were there.
They,
when I was
I know
rewatching
that they're
them
there,
recently,
but when I mean, like, you don't see them as, like, they play, there's no
They're not
mention of it,
significant.
there's no
They're not
reference,
significant,
like, they are as insignificant as, like, one of the buttons in the background on a console in the Falcon.
Yeah.
Like,
And
they're
even-
you know, who cares?
even with what the new trilogy did with them, where Han, plays with them slightly when he gets in the cockpit, so we get to see that he recognizes them at least, and he's like, oh hey, these are still here. And then pulling them out, like, I wanted more of it before that it could reach the significance of The Last Jedi, but then it was at least I've seen Han play
But with
these
Solo,
once in the
it's
last
almost
movie.
like they keep, like, they have the dice, and they're like, do you see them? Do they see them? Raven, I'm
Remember
2 inches
how
from your
important
face.
these dice
you know?
are?
Yeah, and it's just like, who cares? Drop it. They're dice.
Yeah.
They really don't matter at all.
Yeah. And then,
So-
and then like him giving them to her for luck, and I was like,
Yeah.
like that feels like a weak
Oh.
excuse to hand them off. And
Watching-
and then when we were watching it just now, and she hands them to him when he's literally playing a prisoner, a slave, and she hands him off to him, and I just had this moment where he looks down at him, and I was like, oh man. For a minute there, I thought you might have handed me something useful for my second but instead I got these freaking dice back.
Yeah. No, when she said that today, and she's like, for luck, popped into my head was Princess Leia
Kissing
smooching Luke.
And I'm
for
pretty
luck,
sure
you
that
know?
is a specific reference to that. Yeah.
I know, but it's like, that's so weird.
It is weird.
It's
also weird. It's
thing.
also weird making these dice a big thing between him and Kira when they're the last memento that Luke hands to her of her
To
husband
Leia?
at the
Yeah.
end of
Hey,
Last Jedi.
remember these dice that your husband's old girlfriend gave before
Right?
she
Like,
betrayed
what-
him?
what is
Here you
that?
go.
Oh, and this,
Yeah.
and now this is the pettiest of my petty problems with this movie. It's really dumb, but it just rankles me weirdly. So we've got Han Solo. We've met him before. Han's an okay name, sure. We've got Tobias Beckett. Okay, those are both first names. That's great. I know those. And then we've got Kira. Cool. That's a great first name. That's sure. That makes perfect sense. And it's spelled QI apostrophe RA.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, it's not. It's spelled KIRA. If you want to be really dumb, toss a Y in there. But no, you don't need to give us a space fantasy spelling for a name we already know, especially tossing a stupid apostrophe in there. Like, why?
That's how you know it's alien, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I hate it. It's just like, no.
It's just like Klingon, you know, you just you write out your words, then you sprinkle some apostrophes over it, and wherever they land, that's where you
So
stick
I think
them.
from now on I'm going to refer to her as Quira.
Quira. Only
Quira.
there's no Q, or there's no U in there. So
yeah,
it's
but
not
nevertheless,
Qui. Yeah.
I'm going to say it Qui
Okay,
because it is a
that's
Q.
fair.
And because it's more insulting than that. So
Quira.
she is a distant relative of She-Ra.
I love it.
On the
Oh,
subject
man.
of names, what are your thoughts on Han being or given his
I'm
certificate?
Doesn't bother
fine
me
with
in the
it.
slightest.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
okay with
Actually,
it.
I'm surprised. I mean, because I kind of didn't like it.
Really?
I mean, I didn't mind that it was coming from an Imperial officer, but there was the whole like, well, why didn't he just give a last name? Why didn't he have a last name to
Okay.
give? Is there lore around how Corellians do their last names?
Who are you people? It does feel awkward.
Because it made me think that maybe they have something of a tribal.
There is
aspect of it.
That's what it is. Is
Okay.
that you, at least if you're not like from the gutter,
Right.
there are like kind of royal houses or whatever, like on Alderaan, like you're of House Organa, and so then there are like sub tribes of House Organa, and then there's like the sub tribe of Organa in House Organa.
Yeah.
Right. So Corellia is kind of that same, where you have like clans and
Okay.
tribes, but
Which makes a little more sense why the Imperial officers would say, "Who are
your people?" Which is exactly right. Is that's sort of how the Corellians talk about it? Is like, these are my people. I'm from Clan Stewart, or whatever. And so, not being from the gutter, being an orphan, he doesn't know who his people are. So when he's like, "Who are your people?"
I don't have any.
Okay, we're just going to call you Solo.
Yeah. And honestly, the reason it appeals to me is because everything else in this movie is going so over this, like, he got his gun from Beckett, his mentor. He got this from here, and he got this from here, and he picked up this behavior from there.
And the most famous thing about him,
And his last name is
from a
some
nobody.
random dude.
Yeah.
And I like that. It's like, I like it as just this, like, not everything has to be significant. That's not how
Yes.
real life works, and I don't want it in my stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I like it
please
just being
let
like-
episode 9 be that way. I hope
Yeah.
they don't backtrack.
I like
and
the
give
idea
Rey
that...
parents.
Oh, yeah. No, that would be...
Please let her stay
But
a
it's-
nobody.
I
It's
like the
okay
idea
for her to
that
be a
Han
nobody.
Solo is basically the equivalent of Jon Snow or something. It's just like, this is just a name we give people who don't have people. Like,
Yeah.
it's just...
Yep.
You know nothing, Han Solo.
Clearly.
There's that.
Oh, man.
And I will say, too, that Han's competence pushes the envelope for me here. It's never quite to the degree that I can't enjoy the movie, but it is just this, like, combined with the fact that I'm like, where did he get all this? Like, how eventful was his childhood on Corellia that he already has all these wicked awesome skills, particularly the sabacc.
Yeah.
But that's already a problem for me, but just the sheer, like, part of what appeals about Han is that he is lucky. Like, he's always been lucky.
He's almost a Mary Sue.
Yeah, and I don't mind the luck. Like, luck is a real thing in the world. Like, I like to talk
I've
about...
played games against Chris. I can testify. Luck is a real
Don't
thing.
play poker with me. Yeah, it's... I don't usually play... Like, I'm not a gambler, but it's like... Because I'm lucky. Like, my favorite story of this is when I first got married, or even before I got married, when I first started dating my wife. And we went to, I think it was around this time of year, it was around Christmas time, and we went to the mall or a store or something, and I was looking for a parking spot up front. And she's just like, "What are you doing?
Of course
Just
not.
go park
Yeah.
somewhere." And I was like, "No, one will open up." They always open up. I always get good parking spots. Like, 95 times out of 100, I will get a good parking spot.
Get out of my house.
I'm the same
hate
way.
you.
Yeah.
Christina hates it.
Yeah, and at the time, it used to be this thing that I was like, I'm lucky, whatever, it probably happens to everyone, until I started dating my wife. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? Of course I'll get a good spot. And I did. Like, someone pulled out right in front of me. We were 3 spots from the front.
Yeah.
And she was just like, that was just a coincidence. And then over the next several months, it was just, I just always, and that was just normal for me, I like to say, oh, I'm so lucky, but I didn't really think it was out of the ordinary until I started dating my wife, and my wife was like, how do you do that?
Yep.
All the time? Like, that can't be
the same
a
way.
thing.
See,
Christina and I had the same conversation the other day. We were going to Walmart. I had to get some like last minute groceries for Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. Can't remember what it was. She's like, "I'll just park over here." And I said that exact thing. I'm like, "No, we'll get one. I might have to drive around like twice, but I'll get one." And then before we even got to because we had driven up one aisle, missed, turned around, started driving back towards the store. By the time we got to the front, one opened up on the other side, so we got it. And she's just like, "How do you do that?" Or she's like, "I can't believe that." And I said, "You can't believe that? You forget who you're with."
So I'm like, luck is a thing.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how many hours I've sat in college parking lots waiting for classes to get out so I can stalk someone and take their parking spot.
Oh, heck no. I got great
Gosh.
parking always.
Yeah.
Almost immediately.
I hate-
Rarely
There
do I
are
have to
times,
drive
like,
around.
there are the I roll the nat ones occasionally.
Yeah, but it's rare.
Yeah.
High five, Chris.
Yeah.
See, and that's one. It's like there was another one where I got this. I got it for Christmas. This box that had a bunch of games in it, all the basic like checkers and chess and all these others, and it also had a set of poker dice. So these were dice that had
Poker dice?
Yeah, they were dice that had an ace on them, and then the 4 face card, the king, queen, and jack, and then it had a 10 and a 9. but they were the actual card faces on the dice, and you just rolled them, basically played poker with them. And we had one time where we sat down as a family just basically playing Yahtzee with these is what it really amounts to, but they're with poker die faces. And we kept track of how many points you got every time you won. And it worked out like it always does. Like, we were kind of aware that this is how the luck played out, but it was like my dad won more rounds than anyone. I was like 2 behind him. My sister was like 10 behind me. Like, she had like half as many as we did. My other sister was just a bit behind her, and my mom won like 1 the entire time.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's just how, like, put dice in our hands, that's how it's going to play out. It's why people stopped playing poker with me in high school.
Yep.
Because I get lucky with cards.
Both of you bloody frickin' Taverin.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, with this one, that's what
It's
I
funny
literally...
that you do that, because Chris and I would refer to each other as Taverin in high school.
But that was actually the reference I was going to make, is that Solo pushes him a little, like, he's a little beyond Sky Masterson for me here, but he has not reached Matrim Cawthon levels of luck here, so I'm like, it's pushing the envelope and how much I can buy from him, but it doesn't quite cross it, but it is really close to being a problem for me.
Insert. That's a Wheel of Time reference for those that haven't read.
Yes.
Go read Wheel of Time if you haven't read it. It's fantastic.
Go read
Yeah,
them,
it's
yes.
alright. No, seriously, I love it. But
Wow.
I'm just saying. But yeah, it's like that's one of my most unhappy moments in Force Awakens is when Han shoots the dude without looking, and it was just like, no, like that's not who Han is. He's not that lucky. He's not supernaturally. He's not Chirrut. He's not pointing out here when he can't see and shooting people. Like, I can buy that from Chirrut. I can't buy that from Han.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how he works. He's Sky Masterson, not Matrim Cawthon. And anyway, so. I think that's all of my major and minor complaints later.
I actually had one that I'm kind of surprised that you don't have.
I might once you tell me it.
Well, so we know that Han Solo's character is the golden-hearted scoundrel, right? Yeah. Who plays the bad guy until the chips are really down, and then he does
that reminds me
the great thing, right? How on earth did he develop that personality type when he was a street rat from Corellia?
Legit. We need a prequel. Really?
No.
Yes.
Both Solo and Rogue One. Most of the interesting stuff happened before these movies happened.
No, you did forget one, Chris, and I want you to see if you can remember what you said and say it here while we record it. But at the end, when he hears the story about how they cut the tongues out of these people, and all of a sudden he's surprised.
Oh, yeah, that was. Where it's just like, I'm fine with working for the Mafia, but now that I found out that the Mafia killed people, whoa now. It's like, it's the Mafia.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it is a crime syndicate. Killing people is what they do. Like, come on.
And literally the first time you meet Dryden Voss, Han Solo, he has just finished stabbing
just
an
straight
Imperial...
up murdered a dude.
Yeah, like an Imperial governor in the chest with no compuncture whatsoever. Like, just...
In fairness, Han doesn't know that.
No,
They walk in as they're carrying the body out.
They're dragging the body out, and he's like wiping his knife off and like proceeding to eat it. Like, they know he just stabbed this dude to death.
I rescind
and
my
then in
comment.
this, he grew up Oliver twisting his way through Corellia. Like, he knows what crime syndicates can do. He knows what criminals can do.
I mean, he knows Lady Proxima, and she is small potatoes compared to Dryden Voss.
Yeah, there's no way he's not familiar with what the underworld looks like.
I hadn't noticed that until you pointed it out here, but that is true. It is so confusing why he all of a sudden flips the switch like that to be like, I guess now I've realized that they're meanies. Like,
well, these
dumb.
people are bad people. Oh, wow, you're right. I'm going to help you instead. It's just like, what? What? Han? Seriously? Like, that's even flimsier than your choice to remain with Beckett in the first place.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we hit kind of the things that I didn't...
Yeah, I don't have anything else
Okay.
to complain.
So
So
things
what
that
do
we
we like?
liked. Oh, okay, so... Well, I'll bridge the transition here. The Darth Maul thing.
Oh,
Right.
actually, hold on. Wait
Oh.
a minute. Pause. One thing that I don't mind so much, but I know that you guys do. Hashtag droids right.
Oh, yeah, the dumb droid.
No. I'm of mixed opinions on L3. I'm going to discuss her in the positives,
Well,
actually.
and for me, it's not even exclusive to L3. Because all throughout Star Wars, we do know that droids are semi-sentient. They're not...
Are they sentient? Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. Is they're never
we're gonna get
explicitly said to...
philosophical.
Right, I know. See, that's the thing, is they're not ever said to be that way. but people react to them as if they are. They don't serve their kind in certain bars. They're used as servants. They're given restraining bolts. They have personalities, And so there's all these things that just kind of aren't lining up with how we expect beings to interact with other sentient beings, right? And droids fit that so much. So that's kind of why I kind of like that L3 is an activist.
Actually, I'd love to discuss L3 right now because she's not really a positive for me. She kind of is just this muddy middle ground for me.
I don't know. I think I'm just agreeing with you wholesale, Chris, on this episode. I agree. There's a lot about her that bothers me.
Yeah.
I really, and we talked about this on the Last Jedi episode, I really don't like when current political agenda is ham-fisted down my throat in a movie. Right or left political agenda.
Yeah.
When it's... I don't mind drawing on the real world for inspiration, because that's literally what art is. Yes. So referencing our Star Trek episode, Undiscovered Country.
Yeah.
It's literally a Cold War movie. Mm-hmm. And it's done really well. But the ham-fisted politics aren't really there as much.
Fair.
It doesn't feel like... I don't know, it just doesn't feel as forced. With L3 and with the Canto Bight shenanigans of Episode 8, it seems like there's a lot of... Hollywood has a left-leaning agenda that it wants you to... I'm trying... Well, because I'm also trying to
you're
keep
trying
politics,
to be diplomatic about it. Yeah,
be diplomatic, but also I don't want this podcast to be...
Yeah, that's not what we're for.
But I think that there is, if you look at it objectively, there is a left-centric agenda that is like, we want you to agree with this point of view specifically. Here you go.
I'm not certain that actually saying it's an agenda is entirely accurate. I think it just comes from the opinions of those that are making the movie. And so it's not, I honestly don't think that these people that are making the movie, especially a Star Wars movie, are trying to give you that, agenda. I don't think they're trying to do that. I think that's just the way they think and believe, and so that's just how it comes through.
I'd say there's a lot of that. I'd say there are people out... I mean, there are blatantly people out there doing
and obviously,
but I don't think it's here.
Obviously, each of us have our own political and personal biases that reflect how we interpret what we're given as well. And so, I recognize that that's part of that.
And that's the thing with L3 that fascinates me most, is if you look up L3 online and the complaints about her, they're basically divided into two camps, and they're roughly even from what I've been able to find. There are people who dislike L3 because, social justice zealots shoving their stuff down my throat when I just want to have a good time, blah, 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 blah. And then there are people going, they're insulting us by claiming that we're all this over-the-top caricature of what they claim social justice was. There are people on the left complaining that she is insulting them because she's just this caricature of what we believe. Mm-hmm. And then there are people on the right complaining because, she's just them shoving this down our throat. And I'm fascinated by that because I'm like, it's the same character they're all looking at.
Yeah.
And both sides are offended by her.
What's interesting, though, is I could see... I understand where both sides are getting offended with her.
I get it.
But what's funny is, you look at some of the lines, some of the actual dialogue of L3, and it is, almost verbatim lines used by, Black Lives Matter, and, actual real-life, real-world left thing. And so, it's funny that they're like, they're mocking us, that, we're not that extreme, and it's like, well,
I don't think it's necessarily that we're that extreme. It's just that she's kind of clueless. She blunders into freeing all these people thoughtlessly and all this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, from a historical perspective, when slaves are freed, all of us overnight, very, very often it is very bloody and messy and confused. But
that's what makes me laugh about it. Is that you've got all these people that are more right wing going, she is them portraying themselves as they want to be portrayed, and all these people on the left saying that is them portraying us the way they want to see us. But that's not what we are. And I just find that hilarious.
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
As far as I go with L3, I'm just sort of she's okay. She's a little one note is my main problem, is that she's flat. None of these characters really have time to
develop. But she's also unique, which I find entertaining.
I do enjoy her. As far as her place in the Star Wars universe goes, she definitely stands out.
I do like that. I like that she's kind of like R2, where it's there may be some bad wiring in there, But what it has produced is a very unique droid with a very unique personality.
Well, but even like the personalities of the droids that all of a sudden cropped up in Episode 3, the battle droids, or all of a sudden they have a little sass.
Yeah.
You know? No one's going to program sass into a droid.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even malfunctions...
Yeah.
Okay, fair. But even malfunctions shouldn't ever really result in just a sassy droid. You know? So that's why you say they must have some sort of sentience. Crack.com did a great video just on this topic.
Yeah.
You know, showing droids that get tortured, right? That feel pain.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, so what's the deal going on? And so I do like that they are kind of touching on that idea with L3.
But again, they didn't give it much time. Like I'm
Sure.
like, if you're gonna give me a story about that, give me a story about that. Don't just shoehorn it to the surface of
I
this.
think
Right.
I do think there is too much. Like we would like. Let me organize my thoughts here. I think there is too much in L3 of a left agenda of we're pointing this out to you so that you will feel bad if you disagree with us in real life. I think there's, especially with the whole, because her literally, like, that is the hashtag that came out of L3 is Droid Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. Literally based on Black Lives Matter, and that whole, if you don't agree with Black Lives Matter, then you're a terrible racist. And you need to accept everything we say or else. Like, so I don't like that there's that in there because I watch Star Wars to escape things. It's nice to make some comparisons, but I don't want to walk away from Star Wars feeling bad about myself personally because of what I see in your movie. I don't know.
That's fair. No, that's fair.
Yeah. And then also it's the whole like weird semi-sexual relationship with Han with Lando.
It's blatantly.
Yeah, I'm trying to be polite about this, but it's like that is weird.
I actually like an interview. I think it was Donald Glover in an interview, and they're interviewing him, and they asked him about Lando Calrissian's pansexuality, and he was just like, how could you not be pansexual in space? There's just so much to have sex with. And I was like, well, there you go. I buy that.
Yeah.
And it very well fits Lando. But
Yeah.
See, and honestly, that's kind of one of my favorite scenes is when Kira's talking to L3 and L3 is like, yeah, don't you feel this between Lando and I? And Kira's just like,
what?
Really?
Yeah. The eyebrows go all the way to the hair.
Which, and by the way, her eyebrows are so weird. Not so much in this movie, but have you ever noticed so there's another video that, what's her name? Emilia Clarke does, where she plays a person taking care of a rich guy that was in a wheelchair.
Oh yeah,
I don't
it's
remember
like
the name of it.
You Before Me or something like that.
Something like that. She has the weirdest articulated eyebrows I have ever seen out of a person.
I have no complaints about the way she looks.
No, here's the thing. A normal person's eyebrows, there's one control point right next to the nose, right at the inside of the eyebrow. One just a little ways past center that you usually use like when raising your eyebrow. It's that muscle.
Some people have it, some people don't.
and then you have the one at the end, right? So that you have 3 control points. Yeah. She has 4. Okay, she has 3 different sections of eyebrow that she expresses with and can articulate with. It's so weird.
She's a mutant, man.
It's crazy.
Ross, the animator, 3D artist over here, picks that out.
Well, see,
I would have never noticed that.
Man,
in my
I guess
life.
I'm gonna have to go watch more Daenerys scenes from Game of Thrones.
Well,
yeah.
I bet she doesn't do it there because she's trying to play a more proper and reserved type character. That's why she doesn't. That's why she doesn't do it so much here in Solo. Is because she's always being very collected.
Yeah, that's fair.
But in that other movie, she's playing just kind of a flighty,
more animated. Yeah.
And so, and it wasn't even me that noticed it first. But now that it's been pointed out, I cannot see anything else besides.
See, and now, like, I was looking at her this movie, just going, "Gosh, you have such beautiful hair." Like when she's trying on capes and stuff, and she's got like that really curly ponytail thing going on, I was just like, wow, you are an attractive lady with great hair.
So that's when I was watching all of her scenes where she's face to face with Han here going, wow, I'm a little astounded by how little you look like Daenerys right now. It's kind of flooring how much lifting that tan and swapping the hair color does.
Yeah.
But
so we're talking about actors.
Oh,
let's now talk about Donald Glover and his channeling of Billy Dee Williams.
He did so. Chris is going to disagree just because he pulls weird stuff like this out of his.
No, I wasn't floored by him, but I enjoyed it.
I think he did a great job. I think he absolutely nailed Lando Calrissian as played by
I thought
Billy
he
D.
did good.
Williams.
Like, I just
There were some time I can't remember like exact lines, but there are some lines in there where I'm going, that sounds exactly
Yeah.
There are
like Billy D.
definitely some of those,
Williams.
yeah.
Like just the intonation, the fluctuation is what it's Billy D. Williams. He did so phenomenal. A lot of people give Alden Ehrenreich a lot of crap. I thought he did a great job.
I like
I
Alden
didn't
a
have a
lot.
problem with him at all.
My biggest thing, like the crap that most people are giving is that it's just like he's nothing like Harrison Ford. Like he doesn't. And I'm like, no.
Yes.
but he is a good Han Solo.
Exactly. That's exactly what I
the
was
main
gonna
thing
say.
that he pulls off for me is that he is this like morally dubious rapscallion, and yet is still likable, and you buy that he's still a good guy, and he pulls that off to it.
Yes, that was exact because I would see people complaining on the internet like, "Oh, he was terrible. He wasn't Han Solo at all." I'd be like, "Well, what do you mean? Clarify, please." They'd be like, "Well, Harrison Ford." I'm like, there we go. You don't like him because he's not imitating Harrison Ford. He's not here to play Harrison Ford. He's here to play Han Solo, and he does a great job at playing Han Solo. He occasionally gets Harrison Ford right, occasionally not, but he does for overall a very good job at being Han Solo.
Yeah.
Paul Bettany, fantastic.
Yeah,
Can't-
as always.
That
Yeah,
man,
you
I mean,
can't,
you can't say anything. But he is so good. He's one of those few actors that I'm going, I can't think of actually anything I've seen you do that I didn't love.
Yeah.
Like Chaucer in A Knight's Tale was the first time I saw him do anything.
yeah.
And he's fantastic as Chaucer. Just absolutely great. He's great as Vision. He's just amazing. Paul Bettany is
Oh,
fantastic.
heck, even before he was Vision, he was great as just,
Jarvis.
Jarvis.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, Jarvis. Yeah, exactly. So Paul Bettany's amazing. He's great. No complaints at all.
Well, and it's the same with Woody Harrelson. I mean,
Woody
I like
Harrelson,
Woody
man,
Harrelson.
he is fantastic. But
Now this is an interesting one, and I'm probably going to step on some feelings with this one. It's hard not to. So I've seen a lot of complaints about the way Solo treats its female characters. Namely, that like the list I usually see is like, okay, so we've got Val, who gets murdered off early on despite being an interesting and engaging character that, even as we're sitting here, might have been a better character than Woody Harrelson, and he knocked it out of the park. And then we've got L3, who is the first specifically female droid we've seen in the Star Wars movies.
yes,
And she gets killed right in the middle of her victorious moment, and then gets her mind forcibly downloaded into the Falcon.
yeah,
Which
her
is
literal
awkward.
worst nightmare.
Her
Yeah,
worst
like
nightmare.
seriously, especially for
all
someone
about
with her.
droid independence and whatever, and now she literally must obey every command of every button and lever push.
Has zero
Depending
autonomy
on
her
how
own.
much of her sentience actually made that, who knows? It's not really touched upon.
Yeah.
But it is awkward that it's not touched upon,
Yeah,
And then you've got you've got Quira, who is obviously.
there it starts.
You know what? I'm just impressed that he remembers that he's gonna do that.
Yes, I know.
I almost forgot. The only reason I remembered is because I couldn't remember her name at all. And so I was sitting here like, Amelia Clark, like, what was her? Oh, right. Oh, right.
Well, and as soon as he said it, I'm like, wait, that wasn't her name. Oh, right, he made that joke. Oh,
Anyway, now that we've dissected that.
good times. Listeners,
then
you
you've-
got to hear the birth of this joke. It's just fantastic.
And then you've got her, and she is obviously not had a great life.
Right.
And it's never really given focus, is like understandable for the type of movie that they're making, but also really awkward that we've got this background of implied abuse, possibly sexual, probably sexual abuse, manipulation,
realistically,
control, like domination,
probably
all of the
sexual,
stuff that she has clearly been through. To the point where, any of us looking at like, oh, she's using Han right from the beginning, it's like, well, yeah, who blames her? Like, nobody blames her there for whatever's going on, but it's all really just implied in the background, well enough implied that we all get what's going on, but it's still very vague, very uncertain. And so, yeah, she emerges victorious at the end, but she's been through some shiz to get there.
Yeah.
And so, and so those are the things that people point at, where it's just like, really, we're doing this again, and da-da-da-da-da. And I sit there going, like, I hear you, but at the same time, I feel like people who are complaining about that are being very one-sided in their view of this. Because I'm like, okay, let's take the male characters. We're going to ignore for a moment Han, Chewie, and Lando, because they're the legacy characters that come from other stuff, and we know they have to survive. Like, we know that they can only go through so much in this movie, because
We've seen
they're
them
going to
later,
survive.
yeah.
So let's look at the characters who don't survive. Dryden Voss gets brutally murdered, betrayed by his second.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Beckett, who gets shot first.
Yeah, he does.
And
well, until they, put the special edition out where he
Yeah, it
fires and
turns out-
misses,
Misses.
and then Han Solo
and then,
shoots
of course,
him.
we get the TV show where it turns out he actually survived, and he comes back to head his own crime syndicate against Kira.
Exactly.
Anyway, and then you've got Rio, who goes down in exactly the same way as Val,
Yeah.
but nobody complains about Rio dying there. Only Val.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you've also got what's her name that's head of the
Enfys Nest.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's her name is Enfys
Oh,
Nest.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's the Enfys Nest gang is all I've seen of it. But
okay.
her name is Enfys Nest.
Yeah, and then you've got Anne of Green Gables there, who is who actually comes through. Like, everybody ignores her in their list of how this movie treats its female characters.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
great.
Partly because she's not much of a character. Legit.
True, yeah.
So, I'll allow that, but I was like, Val is as much of a character as Rio, and we're all upset there.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if you look at the character, most of the female characters in this movie were doomed by the fact that they're not Han, Lando, and Chewie. And the fact that all three of those are male is a product of a more sexist time, not a it's the constraints imposed upon this movie by what was initially set up.
Yes.
And given that is one of the things that I like about this, is that they didn't kill off Kira. Instead, they found a different reason for her not to be, even if we don't get any more stories from there, which I kind of hope we don't personally, but
I feel like we won't.
I buy this as either way,
though,
I still buy
comics,
this
yeah.
as a reason for her not to be in Han Solo's life ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't that we all went into that movie assuming she's gonna die.
I honestly thought
Yeah,
that.
because of course
Especially in
she's
that
a love
last
interest
little
and
fight
she's not
scene.
Leia.
Especially the fight scene, I thought, okay, so she's gonna
Yeah.
die trying to save Han. She's gonna turn on Dryden Voss. He's gonna kill her.
Yeah.
Han, in a fit of rage, is gonna get his
Yeah,
plus
it
5
would be
bonus
the
to
most
attack
yeah.
from love, and
Yeah.
then he's gonna kill Dryden.
Especially
Elliott.
because women are so frequently treated as objects to motivate male rage or grief in stories, and so it's just like, say, maybe L3, and even there, like, his grief is given so little time that it's like, it's not even a good example of that in some ways. But we get so we all assumed that's where this is going. She's a love interest. She's not Leia. Of course, she's going to die, and in a way that motivates Han in some way. Blah 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 blah. And instead, she goes, "No, I have my own goals, and I've been through some shiz, and I'm not giving these goals up. I'm going to give him up instead." And she chooses to become a high-ranking member of this criminal organization with more autonomy than she's ever had before, and go her own path. Basically, breaks up with Han. Without blatantly, and it's pretty clear going in that he knows it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not, like, I do appreciate that they did that, where it's like, he feels almost a little gullible early on, and then you have that moment with Beckett where he's like, no, you're not playing me that isn't the boring trope that we're playing with here, which would have been severely undermined if he had been like, oh, so caught off guard. But instead it's, they have that goodbye scene where I feel like they both nailed it pretty well, that Alden's sitting there like,
this went how
okay,
yeah.
sure, Kira, I'm gonna go down here and I'll see you later. And then she flies off and he's not like, what? No, he just watches and goes, yep. And I like that though, because it's in some ways so much more mature than what movies usually go for. It's, she makes a choice that's not him, he's hurt by that, and he says, okay, that's your choice.
Well, it feels more real too. Because that's how a lot of real relationships.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many
end,
people have you broken
know?
up with because they got brutally murdered by some horrible person and then you enacted revenge?
I don't want that on record. But but there have been breakups, where it's just kind of like you kind of feel it coming and you make some flimsy excuse and both parties just go, okay, we're going to agree to live by the excuse and pretend that that's the truth.
Yep.
Even though
we're separating because we've got different priorities here, and we're both mature enough to acknowledge that,
that's
even
a
if we're not
real
going to actually
thing.
mature enough to actually say it to each other. But
well, because sometimes
no, and I buy it, but I'm like, I appreciate that the subtext is there for me, if for nothing else, for me to go, yeah, it's there. They're doing that, and
so
and it's
I'm
not
with you on
just
this one.
murdering her in the most cliche way possible. It's her achieving what she wants, and it's not Han, and Han just deals. Like, it's not, he's not betrayed or utterly blah 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 blah. He just goes, well, that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next movie won't be him moping around the Falcon. until the end.
It might have
Yeah.
been.
Well.
Who knows? But
Not for that reason.
it won't be now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing I liked the music in this.
Yeah, I did like music.
I commented on this during the movie, but after Han gets picked up and rescued out of the military, and they're going, it's right before the train. It's when they go to the
Flying
planet.
through the mountains.
Yeah, so that flying through the mountains, that music there is great.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I know John Williams didn't do it, but I think it's as good as anything that John Williams wrote. Like, it's really, really good. I love that music.
And I have been impressed with those that have kind of picked up where John Williams
Some of the
left
themes,
off.
yeah.
They've all of them have done a good job.
Well, I'm going to retract that. It's not as good as John Williams' music because it's not as good, but it's
They're
very
using
good.
his music well.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that Flying Through the Mountains music isn't John Williams, but it is really, really good.
I like their use
yeah.
of familiar
Oh.
themes as well.
I was just looking up who it was that did the music. It was John Powell who did How to Train Your Dragon.
Ooh.
That fits.
That
makes sense
actually,
to me.
that makes a lot of sense. Because I could hear that music in, like, if that music was in How to Train Your
Yeah.
Dragons, it would feel very much at home.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
But that's really interesting because there's a lot of hope in that music.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of like sense of adventure. And I mean, boy, that's How to Train Your Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's good.
yeah.
Good find, Ross. Good find.
Other things that I like here, I like that Chewie is actually a character.
Yeah.
I wish we had more of that.
Yes.
But yeah,
agree.
he actually interacts with people. Although I will say, this is one thing I forgot that this movie just makes me feel a little weird about, is the fact that Han apparently speaks Wookiee and never speaks Wookiee.
Except for once. Yeah.
Yeah, he literally speaks Wookiee to Chewie on this one occasion and then never does it again. Which I feel is not very nice.
It's not a
I
very
mean, I
good
guess
friend.
I could see. I know a lot of people who speak Russian, and we don't speak Russian just because they speak English way better than I speak
Yeah.
Russian is often the case. And I know people who do speak English, but their Russian is better, and so we converse in Russian because that's easier for them. So maybe it's, I can headcanon it as that's what's going on, but it still feels a little
Well,
weird
and they
that
kind
Han
of-
never bothers to speak his best friend's language.
I think they're trying to show that in the subtitles when Han and Chewie are having that
Yeah, that
conversation.
his Wookiee is really bad.
Yeah, because I mean, you get a lot of the,
It's
the
really
ellipses. I
Yeah.
mean, he's using kind of rough
Yeah.
words that
Rough
make
grammar.
sense.
And they did a good
like
job
big
with that, I
stick
agree.
instead of pole or
And
pillar
I
or
could
whatever.
see Chewie. I mean, as far as like headcanon goes, I could see a conversation between Chewie and Han that goes something like this: that Han is trying to speak Wookiee, and Chewie says, "Listen, why don't you just speak in Basic? Because I can understand that, and you can understand me when I speak Wookiee." Your Wookiee, I understand you, Han, better
Yeah.
when you speak Basic. so
Because
why don't you
I've had
just
those
do
conversations
that? Yeah.
with people where it's
I've
just
had
like,
that
look,
too
no,
with
don't worry
Italian.
about it.
Uh,
Look, just speak Russian, it's fine. Or where they're like, no, just speak English, it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's like,
So
okay.
I could see a conversation like that where
Yeah.
Chewie's like, look,
Yeah.
I love you. I
could see
get what you're trying to do. I appreciate it. You just speak Basic. It will make things go way
See, and that's a
smoother.
scene that if we had just cut a lot of the extraneous stuff so we could focus more on Chewie,
That would
I
be
would have loved
awesome.
to have seen that.
But I love their
I would have
meeting.
loved for
I
that
love-
to have taken place in the shower.
Yeah.
Which I love that scene.
That would have been so good.
To just be like, no, man, don't do this. Just speak Basic.
That was a great physical comedy, though.
That
where
was a
Chewie,
delightful
you just see
moment.
his giant feet. just like, hey. you know?
Han's
there,
just
big guy.
annoyed. Just
Yeah.
looks up at him, really.
Yeah.
I wish, though, there was one deleted... no, maybe it wasn't a deleted scene, or if it was an alternate where they actually gave the script of what Chewie was saying at a moment. It's the moment where Han is like, well, I ain't saying that every time, right? He asks him,
Okay.
what's your name anyway?
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Chewie's actual dialogue was actually, I am Chewbacca, son of Atiktutik.
Oh, yeah.
How do you ever say that name? Atiktutik or something? Whatever his dad's name is. Of something. It wasn't. It was super long.
Yeah.
And so it makes the joke so much better if you actually got the dialogue. But
Yeah.
you never
Yeah.
have Chewie translated, so
Yeah,
it's
that's
unfortunate that wasn't...
Another thing I loved,
There.
and this is just a little teeny thing, but just because I'm a huge fan of the Empire, love all the shipbuilding scenes in Corellia.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
They are gorgeous. It's way fun to see Star Destroyers getting put together. It's so cool
And with that, they did a good job at the continuity that even I had forgotten.
that they're
Yeah.
ISD ones.
Either ISD ones,
Yeah.
but also the TIE Fighters are blue and not gray.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Because when you think TIE Fighter, you just think gray and black, but actually, yeah, they were bluish
Yep.
in New Hope. So,
No. They're gray in New Hope. They're blue in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
Could have sworn it's
But then this was the actual little thing, and then the Star Destroyers popped into my head. But the cop, stormtrooper on the little speeder bike.
Square bike, yeah.
He looks so cool. Like, that uniform is dang cool looking. So I just love that. He's not really that important. I get it. We never see him anywhere else yet. But it was way cool looking, and I'm always happy to see more Imperial variation.
I appreciate that when early on in the movie, when we first met Lando, I was worried that they were going to play him as one of those better than the protagonist in every way, but for some reason not the protagonist characters that they always like to stick into things. Where it's like, I'm here to make the protagonist feel inadequate, but they're still the protagonist for some reason, despite the fact that I'm demonstrably better. And that they often play characters like that for laughs, you know? And it's like, we're basically the same, only I'm better in every way. Ha ha, sucks to be you.
Yeah.
And I was worried that they were gonna play it like that early on, because it's one of the ways that people try to make up for previously racist portrayals of people. Is like, oh, okay, instead of the black guy being the first to die, or being... any of the numerous ways we've been racist, he's going to be super cool and basically perfect in every way. Where it's like, no, we just want him to be a character, a person, not just a new version of not a person, even if it's a better one.
They did a good job at Lando with that, because he definitely is flawed.
Yeah.
He is better than Han at some things, but not everything.
And I appreciate that they're very distinct people, and that it works out in the end that they're just very different, but they're both very capable. I liked.
Yeah,
I was worried early on in the movie where they were
Yeah.
going to go with that, because I was like, I don't want to just sit here and watch Lando be better than Han
I
all
was
the
just
time.
happy that they went with Donald Glover.
Yeah,
Because as soon as they confirmed that Lando was going to be in this movie, and then they said, like, well, here are the list of names we're thinking of, I'm going, there's only one right answer here, Disney.
Well, and everyone said the same thing.
Yeah, it's like, it has to be Donald Glover. Mm-hmm. He's so fantastic.
I don't know. I still kind of wish they'd cast Danny Pudi instead. That would have been great.
Oh, that would have
That would be Abed of the Troy and Abed pair.
Okay.
I want to see Danny Pudi in Star Wars just somewhere.
I want to
Give
see
him
Danny
a
Pudi in
character.
anything. Like,
He's
literally,
so
put him
good.
anywhere. I'm just always happy to see
Yeah,
Danny Pudi.
he's excellent. What else do we like?
I liked Han's flying. Like, I thought they did a good job with a lot of his more stuntish stuff without it being too gimmicky.
Sure.
I liked him flipping the
TIE fighter?
Falcon over to whack the TIE fighter. I thought that was awesome. I like him grinding the landing
Hear that.
gear
You
in
heard
order
it here.
to.
Chris likes Han Solo's grinding.
Yeah, you know it. Well, sadly, I'm not one of the people lucky enough to know that firsthand. But
I loved the costuming just all around. Enfys Nest and her gang, they look super cool. They look really like kind of outlaw. They look really cool. I love Tobias Beckett. His look is super cool. I love like the long kind of trench coaty look. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I already mentioned the one stormtrooper at the beginning, the cop, the patrol trooper, or whatever. It might actually be patrol trooper. I love the range troopers with their big fur coats they have on the train. Pretty cool looking.
And the boots. I like the boots.
Yeah, the boots
Magnetic
are cool.
boots.
Dryden Voss looks way cool.
Yep.
Emilia Clarke, she's gorgeous and looks great. The costuming all around was pretty phenomenal.
So I enjoyed the attention to detail all the way around. I mean, I know we talked about the references, the Easter eggs for kind of good and bad, but the fact that some scriptwriter knew all of those, even down to the Teräs Käsi reference.
Yeah.
The what?
Teräs Käsi?
Her martial arts that she
Oh.
uses to take out the mechanical walrus dude.
That only ever appears in an old, I think it was a PS1 game, where they tried to do a fighting game.
Right.
And they called it Mashes of Teräs Käsi. and it
Oh,
was
that's
terrible.
right. Yep.
But,
that's
yeah.
right.
So, but I mean, just the fact that someone actually knew that. You mentioned even also that there was a planet mentioned in the second Thrawn book that they talked about in here that they referenced.
Oh yeah, the Black Spire.
Oh, Black Spire.
Black Spire,
yeah.
yeah.
It's an outpost on a know-nothing planet.
Right.
Yeah.
They talked about, Val is asking Beckett, why don't we get the Zan sisters? Which is the
You
one...
killed Aurra Sing. And...
Well, you killed Aurra Sing, but the one Zan sister was the one to try and kill Padme in episode 2.
That's Zam Wessel.
Zam
not
Wessel,
the Zam
not
sisters.
the Zan sisters. Yeah.
Oh.
I thought the same thing though for several times. I was like, and then every
I didn't
time
even
hear
get that far.
every time I hear that name, that's exactly what my mind goes to, and then I have to remind myself, no, that's Zam Wessel it's a different thing, and she's already dead. So,
Well, right. They wish they would have. Oh, that's right. There were.
because this is
But I did
before
like
the
that
prequels.
point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that like Ara Singh, they mentioned Bosk,
Yeah.
and it's like that's really cool that you are dropping the names that these people in universe really would know. Like,
Yeah, and that we can recognize.
like, there's
I
no
like
way
that.
Beckett wouldn't know who Bosk is or Ara Singh. Like, these are
And that feels
prominent
natural.
people in their
That's a
field.
natural
Yeah.
Easter egg. I like it.
And so, very, very well done on that. It's nice to see Sabak that we've heard about
Yeah.
actually seen, and we get to, even if we don't know exactly the rules, like it, but
Good
it
enough,
feels
yeah.
natural. It feels like they know what they're doing at least. You know, so that's good enough, I guess. Yeah, it's good overall. I mean, yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, I don't have much more to say. Oh no, I do have one more to say. Dryden Voss's vertical ship.
Oh,
we don't
yeah,
see
I
hardly
love that.
any vertical ships in Star Wars. And it's a beautiful one, and it's so cool looking, and it's so unique because it is a vertical ship. It's awesome.
I think it makes perfect sense design wise for what he would be looking for. Like, this is an imposing ship. It's dark and kind of creepy.
And
But also very
from
fancy.
his office, he literally gets to look down on
Yeah,
everyone.
it basically puts
at
him
all
in
times.
a skyscraper wherever he goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just this flying skyscraper for him to be above everyone else and on the top. And I like that. Like,
Chris made a
that's
great
nice.
joke. Snoke was a huge fan of
The singer, yeah.
which is why he dressed like her.
That's right, yeah.
And that was the other thing. We complained before about seeing, or I complained at some point in not seeing recognizable alien species in things. I think it was in Rogue One that you don't see
yeah.
very many recognizable aliens. You had a couple things that you did recognize in.
Oh, there's
Lost Ship.
that's right. There's a really cool Rodian, Rodian is what Greedo is, for if you don't know. But he's got
Greedo
like
is
an
the
orange,
dude that Han shot, the original dude that Han shot first, if you don't know.
Yes.
but he's got a different coloring, so he's got kind of like an orange that kind of fades into a yellow at his snout, which is cool. There's a Twi'lek at the
sitting in
end,
the-
at the final poker game, or Sabak game, where
Yeah.
Han actually wins the...
But there's also one in Voss's ship as
Yes.
they're clapping for the singer. You see her right on the front row.
Yeah.
This one also gave me, and not in any position of significance, but I love when we first see that singer in her fantastically golden dress, and her partner there that she's singing with is this head
This
in a
head,
jar
yeah.
alien dude. And I love that because I always love when sci-fi really gets out there and stops with the humanoid aliens.
Yeah.
I've complained about that on the show, and I had
is,
forgotten
yeah.
about that when we were watching this, and I was like, oh, that's right. So
They
they gave me head in a jar dude. I love that.
They show a couple of other... I don't know what the names of them would be, because they're still too new, but there were a couple aliens that I recognized that show up in, like, Force Awakens, that now have shown up in
Right.
Solo.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool that you're tying things together and showing that these people exist outside of this time period.
I also noticed this time there's one that's in Rogue One that's in this as well. There's a Yeti dude that's in...
yeah.
I don't know what he is, but he's white for a Yeti. But also, the lieutenant in Rogue One for Forrest Whitaker's character. I can't remember the name all of a
Oh,
sudden.
yeah, the Tube Face.
Yeah, the
is-
Two-Face
is
guy.
the production
that's,
name.
Sure.
I don't know his name, but his name was Tube Face. That
what-
was... I know who you're talking about.
What's the name of Forrest Whitaker's character?
Saw
Gerrera.
Saw.
It's
Why can't I
it's
think
Saw
of that?
Gerrera's like number 2
Yeah.
in the Partisans.
And he also seems to be number 2 for Enfys Nest.
Only it's not the same. It's
Is it not the same one?
yeah, one's male, one's female.
Oh, I thought it was the same guy.
Yeah. Nope. But yeah, so they've done a good job of sort of showcasing that.
Other good thing that we were also happy about: Warwick finally got lines.
Yeah!
Warwick. After being like every single freaking movie nearly.
Yep. And he's great. We love Warwick
I know,
Davis.
Warwick Davis is
I hope
always
he
delightful.
continues and they let him be in every movie. I'm sure
Well,
they
you
will.
have to at this point.
He's great. He's just true. And that's the thing too, is because he said he was in it, and so then I go to the theater to watch it for the first time. I'm like, where is he? And it never clicked to me that there's this short guy
Yeah.
until the end when he takes off his
mask
helmet.
off,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, of course he's the short guy. Wonderful.
You know, I just realized we don't have R2 and 3PO in this movie.
Yep, I appreciated
True.
that.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm not sure I appreciate that.
I do.
Because now they don't have the full set.
They can't be everywhere. The more you make,
Yes,
the
they
less it's
can.
going to make sense to have them all. Same way I appreciate losing the I got a bad feeling about this. And
Yeah,
I
there
even
wasn't one
appreciate
here.
in this one, I got a good feeling about this.
Yeah.
I thought that was a
To
nice...
be fair, like it
Yeah.
made sense for R2 and 3PO story-wise for their placement in every other
In
movie,
Rogue One, I
like
know.
Rogue One,
well,
because
sort of.
it's
Like,
well,
they're kind of shoehorned
sort
into
of,
the prequels.
but it's like, but at least they're still like it's still the rebellion. They're still around, you know. But with Solo, it's like that would have been
there's no reason
a
for them at all,
blatant invasion of privacy almost to have them in there. Yeah, boy.
Still makes me a little sad.
So overall, I liked it. I mean, I enjoy watching it, but it's definitely not close to the better Star Wars movies.
I might put it in every once in a while. I'll stop and watch it if it's on TV, for sure.
For me, it's a bit better than Rogue One for me, but really I just put them on par. The only difference between them is that everybody's gung-ho about Rogue One, and most people are going, yeah, Solo was okay, and I'm like, that's right. So I don't have to be...
But for me, this will be a movie that I watch probably once a year when it's Star Wars Day in May, and I watch all the movies.
That's right.
You do it all in a day? I was like, wow, dude.
No. I've
you're
had to break it up into
point.
3. I used to be able to do it all in 2, because you do May the 4th Be With You and Revenge of the 5th.
Revenge of the 5th.
And now I just do 3 days. May the 4th Be With You, Revenge of the 5th, and then Revenge of the 6th. We just hit that
Just
twice.
lose the pun. Just
Yeah.
The 5th strikes back. And...
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So we've talked about the pros and cons, and as I'm suggesting this, we might even want to do a full episode on it, because we are going. We have a good amount of episode that we've already recorded. If we want to continue with this. But the other big topic that surrounds this movie is the Star Wars fatigue. Do we want to talk about that now or later?
Let's just briefly discuss why this movie didn't do as well. Okay. Because I don't necessarily think the reason is Star Wars fatigue.
I agree. I don't think
it's Star Wars fatigue. I think a combination of two things. One, I think it didn't have enough time for us to rejuvenate from the last one. Right. I think if they had put it in December, and I was initially excited. I'm like, sweet, I don't have to wait as long. Awesome. And then May got around and I was like, I'm still reeling from Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm. But then again, looking at Marvel, it's like, oh, why would that be a problem?
Well, but it has started to become a
there
problem.
Is Marvel fatigue.
No, there is definitely Marvel fatigue.
They were originally doing them every year, and then when they started doubling them up, you did start to see.
Yeah. Well, and they started tripling.
And they started tripling them now. Yeah, you're right.
I think the backlash from Last Jedi, deserved or not, there is backlash. I think that
that's the thing
Solo.
Is, I agree though that I think the backlash from Last Jedi is far smaller than people want to believe it is. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot. Last Jedi's sales. Were not impacted. It's sold great, including after people had already heard all the bad stuff. It had been through the theaters. Its DVD sales are right on par with all the others. It's not up there with Force Awakens or Phantom Menace, but those were both benefiting from reintroducing the franchise again. Those are the big ones. But it easily outsold Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith in home sales.
Yeah,
and
I don't know. I think it was too close to Last Jedi, and it was too close to
for
Last
some
Jedi.
people. For some people, that's definitely a concern.
So
yes.
that
that's
would be my
I don't
guess.
want to dismiss them as I'm sitting right next to you. Yeah. I know there are plenty of people that feel that, but it's not. I don't feel like it's significant enough to have that sort of impact on sales.
One thing though that I almost wonder, and you might have to correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering this poorly. Solo wasn't advertised like the rest of the movie.
Solo,
That's true.
I was actually reading this earlier that it specifically had said that Solo was not as well advertised as most of the others. And
I think that also comes with placing it too close to Last Jedi. Because remember, Last Jedi, we get trailer 1 at the Super Bowl in February or March or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then we get sporadic, we have 10 months of build-up where Solo doesn't want to step on the heels of Last Jedi, so they don't do any advertising while it's in the theater. So you don't get to even start advertising for your show that comes out in May until January or February.
Yeah.
And then they chose not to do anything till the Super Bowl again. And so I think it was in March for your May movie. Yeah. Right. You had 2 months of advertising.
Yeah. I think another thing that impacted this is the reporting surrounding Star Wars movies and everything. The people grasping at every rumor and everything that happens because you got a lot of bad... I deliberately avoid Star Wars news. And even I was well aware that they'd been through several directors. They'd been through quite a few writers. There was all sorts of rumors about Alden Ehrenreich's acting lessons.
Yeah, there was a lot of worry for...
There was a lot of dubiousness about how well run this particular ship was.
Well, and back to the advertising, too. I'm sitting here thinking, who's your target audience? Star Wars fans. Who's going to show up to Star Wars? Your Star Wars fans. why didn't you drop a trailer for Solo at episode 8?
Yeah,
when
that is a weird
everyone
choice.
who would be interested in this movie is there to see a movie like this movie.
Because they do that with Marvel movies.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it would have made abundant sense to be like, hey, you're here in episode 8 because you love Star Wars. Here's what is coming in a few months. Get excited.
Yeah.
Drop another trailer at the Super Bowl. Then hit it hard, for those two. But to give nothing. And I think the reason they didn't give anything is because they were scrambling. You had the reshoots. They didn't have a trailer to show because they didn't
shifted
know
up
what
the
was
release date.
Yeah, like it was
shifted it up?
complete mess.
I believe so, yeah.
Really?
It was originally going to be a December release, just like
Yeah, and
they were
then-
doing every December, and then they decided we're going to shift it back to May. And then Solo didn't do well, and so they decided, you know what, never mind, we're going to leave Episode 9's release in
So
December
it's
after all.
Okay.
It was a combination of many things that I think.
Here's some more. I've got 2 more. One that I think was... Oh, no, I only had 1 more left. Never mind. I already said. Was that... I read this article about it, actually, which I found fascinating. And it basically went into the fact that people only have so much disposable income that they spend on movies.
Yes.
Right.
And on average, your average American, and this does not necessarily hold true worldwide, and obviously there's a lot of variance in America, but your average American is not going to go to more than 3 to 5 movies a year in the theater. And most of those tend to be raked in by these big billion-dollar blockbusters that we're producing. And so the problem that Disney is potentially facing here is that between Marvel and Star Wars, they are producing the number or more than the number of movies that people go to in a year. And they're not the only studio out there. You have other competing blockbusters that are big deals going on. You've got other franchises and everything that aren't owned by Disney. And so when Disney is flooding the market all on their own, not all movies can do that. Eventually something has to
to be reasonable with yourself and expect that some of your movies may not do as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think about myself. This year, 2018, we're headed to the end of it. In theater, I have seen Black Panther. I took my wife, and this is part of the problem too. When you have a family, your kids then, like when they get old enough, so I took my wife to see Black Panther. The kids wanted to see it, and I said, I liked it, but not enough to pay to take you to the theater to see it. We will buy it, and you can watch it then. And then Star Wars, or Solo. Yeah. I took my wife to see it.
You didn't see Infinity War?
No, I did see Infinity War. You're right.
I was going to say.
I did see Infinity War, yeah. You're right. I saw Infinity... Actually, no. I saw Infinity War, and I rented Black Panther.
Okay.
That's what it was.
See, I saw Black Panther, and
I
the only
see
reason
Black
I made it to
Panther
Black Panther was partly because it was doing so well, and partly because I had to see it before Infinity War. And then Infinity War and Solo.
Yeah.
So that's all I've been to.
Yeah, I took my wife and I to see Solo,
I guess
then...
Technically, I did catch Thor Ragnarok just before it left theaters at the beginning of the year, so I did have that one.
Yeah, so my wife and I saw Solo, then my wife and I and our 2 kids saw Solo. That's 6 tickets already that I bought this year.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And it's like, my wife kind of wants to see Bohemian Rhapsody. I do too, but I'm going, I don't know if I want to see it in theater. Like,
I love the Marvel movies, but I did not see Ant-Man and the Wasp until it came out on home video.
I still haven't seen it.
It's alright.
So
it's okay.
And so I'm going, you're not wrong about the monetary thing. Is it's expensive to go to the movies.
Yeah.
And where I know that, like, for a Star Wars movie, you're going to get at least 6 tickets from me. I can't afford to go to the movies frequently at that amount of tickets. I can't.
And it's especially when movies are not just competing with other movies these days, they're also competing with Netflix and with Amazon producing all of this original content and releasing it straight to your couch.
Right.
Or wherever you want to watch it with those, I'm going to go hang in a hammock outside and watch that on my phone. Sweet. And there's just... so it's this awkward, sad thing where it's like, I don't think Ron Howard and the rest did a bad job. I kind of feel like most of what made this movie not work was out of their hands.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and for the rate of like changes in directors, changes in writers, all those changes that were made during production, they did a good job.
Yeah, given that.
Yes.
And
that's exactly my thought too, is given the obstacles you had to overcome to put this movie on screen.
Yeah.
You did pretty good, sir. I'm not
so.
complaining too loudly. So, there we are. I don't think I have anything more to say about it.
All right. So, Solo, not Solo. but
Not so high either.
yeah,
No,
not so
guys,
high either.
We have to come up with another half hour of stuff so we can match the other reviews.
Oh, no.
Okay, let me
All
think.
right.
Okay, so Lando's wardrobe.
Yeah.
That is some over the top stuff. Like
Actually,
it's,
but
no
another
capes.
reference. It's the same. One of the capes that you see. I think it's the one that
Yeah,
Kira's
you do
trying
see
on is the
one
same
of
one
his
that he wears in
capes, yes.
Empire.
Yeah.
but I did find that slightly
I
out
love
of
that
place.
Chris is taking the joke suggestion to continue. Seriously.
I had actually like 30 seconds ago realized, oh yeah, I was going to mention that. Oh well. But hey, if you're
No, go
asking
for it.
for more,
Yeah, let's do it.
There was just, it's like, I don't have a problem with it per se. It was just this facet of Lando that we've never seen before. That like he's always well dressed, but we've never actually seen an entire
That
closet.
he's like
Yeah.
a fop.
yeah,
Yeah.
that he's quite foppish. He's straight up Scarlet Pimpernelling here.
You see, that was the idea that grew up around him because we don't really have evidence of that in Empire.
Yeah.
But everyone kind of assumed he was, and so they just wrote it into him
And yeah,
in
and,
Solo.
and so when I remember encountering that and being like, really? I mean, I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
like,
Sure.
not a bad thing,
Yeah.
sure. Why not? Just, but man, when I, that Hawaiian shirt at the end of the
Yeah,
video,
it's so good.
I adore that. Yeah, I love it. It's so dumb, but I love it so good. Like, it's so dumb, it's good. Like, it comes around there. And my wife might agree, but I have a soft spot in my heart for Hawaiian shirts in the first place, and
Out of people that fly ships.
yeah, she does not have. She does not care for my taste for Hawaiian shirts in general. So, but when I saw that on Lando, I was just like, "What? I'm so happy!"
I thought it was perfect.
yeah,
It was so good.
I liked that, and I liked how. I'd forgotten this as something I liked. I liked how Han did end up with the Falcon.
Yeah.
That it was like basically Lando cheated him. And then he just removed Lando's ability to cheat. He
Yeah.
didn't necessarily, that we know of, cheat
Which is
himself.
why he says, "Hey, I won her fair and square."
Yeah.
In
Yes.
episode
Yeah.
5.
And I also really appreciate the little moment in this where they first are at the sabacc table, the very
Or
first
you
game.
lost her to me fair and square.
Yeah.
Something like
That's
that.
right.
Yeah, whatever it is.
And where they're sitting at that first table, and he calls him Han, and Han's like, "It's Han."
Han, actually.
Yeah.
And I realized that, oh my gosh. So when he calls him Han, that's just him being a dick.
Yeah.
Like, he called him Han all the time in the original trilogy, and now we're recasting that as
He's just,
the way I look
making
at
fun
it,
of his friend.
Yeah, is I looking at that as something that he initially did to be a jerk,
Yeah.
to like get under his skin, and then it just sort of grew into a, well, this is just what I
Nickname.
call you, my nickname for you.
Yeah.
Like when my sister calls Ross Charlie.
Yep.
Or even didn't do that, because we have no evidence that they really interacted again after this.
I'd like to think
Necessarily.
that they did, though, that there was like a begrudging respect that kind
I
of grew
kind
into
of
this
feel like
friendship.
with the rate people run into each other in this galaxy, it's relatively impossible that they had no more encounters at all. But yeah, I do. But nevertheless, like I like where this left them.
Yeah.
And where it's like, we're not friends, except that Han is kind of determinedly going, yeah, we are. Come on in. I'm alright. You know I'm alright. And I'm going to be alright with you being a dick. And so of course we're friends.
Yeah.
Which I can think of fewer, more Hanish things to do.
Right?
Yeah, really. Alrighty. Well,
Oh, wait, no, I've got nothing.
I was going to cut Chris off. Anyway, so while we were waiting, Ross and I were waiting for Chris to show up to record our last batch of episodes. We were talking about, Ross and I were talking about Thanos and Vader and other villains, mostly because we have an episode coming up along those parameters. And neither of us had any clue how to approach it. We had a great conversation, and after about 20 minutes, we realized that we had essentially created an outline for that episode. And then Chris showed up, literally like 30 seconds later. And we gave him the 30-second version of our total conversation, and he proceeded to blow our minds with his views. And we said, oh, Chris should definitely lead the discussion on that episode. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Next week, tune in to hear Chris dissect and examine what makes a villain a villain. And
I do love villains.
And we're going to talk about Star Wars villains and other villains and see where they fit. And
Many of the greatest and best.
yeah, we're going to start out... we'll do that next time. Anyway, it'll be great. I'm excited. So, as always, be sure to follow us on Twitter, at More Civilized, and let us know what you think. What were your thoughts on Solo? What did you like? What did you not like? And join our Facebook group, A More Civilized Podcast. Hey, Steven, you love my shout-outs? He shares some great stuff in there always. He's fantastic. And Justin Thompson also. A little shout out to you, my friend. So yeah, join these two guys. And,
You saw
let them know.
what he posted, didn't you?
Probably. I mean, I know I did. I've seen everything posted there. I'm
Yeah.
bad at keeping who posted what straight, though.
Because he mentions you specifically in his last post.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Chris is
Forgotten. Sorry,
blushing.
guys. I'm so bad. I'm really bad at
You're adequate.
online
Chris. You're not really
interactions.
bad. You're just
That's
adequate.
right. I'm merely adequate at online. No, I'm bad at online interactions. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
he
just-
is.
That's
That's
I do
fair.
not keep straight. I don't even I get texts and I just. Oh yeah, right. Someone texted, called me. Didn't call that back. My bad. Really bad at that. Anyway.
So, you can talk with me on Twitter because I'm so much better at responding
He is.
in electronic formats than
It's true. Ross is actually really
I'm
good
never
at
on
it.
Twitter, so I don't know, but I assume he is.
Oh, there we go. You can find me at Mr_R* on Twitter.
And if you have anywhere else that you would like to see our podcast that you have not seen it, please let us know. And then if you've got any topics that you just really want to hear us talk about, or anything we've said in shows that you really would like expanded upon, let us know. Let us know on Facebook, on Twitter, and we will see what we can do about that.
You betcha. And as always, may the force be with you.
Always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to a more civilized podcast.
Silence for sound.
That's my band's name in college.
Okay.
That's too good. Ugh.
Your band's name in college.